So here we So let's start with everybody doing a couple of minutes introduction, your name, who you are, tell us something rebellious about you, and tell us what brings you here. And then go ahead and set up your intention. If you feel comfortable to do it out loud with us, that is okay. If you prefer to just close your eyes and do it for yourself, that's okay too. Yeah. Today we're gonna give you some space just until we get to know each other, and then we'll go from there. So who wants to be the brave soul? Oh, come on, ladies.
I'll go.
Okay.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Adriana. So Maria and I met feel like it was like 10 years ago. No, it was like 9 years ago at this point. We used to work together at AIG. And so I resigned from AIG in June and started to feel my connection to Maria come closer again. I was really burnt out and I knew I'd wanted to leave for a long time, but just for various reasons, I couldn't do it yet. And I wasn't ready to do it yet. And finally, when I was ready, um, I was like, I'm going to take a sabbatical, take a few months off, and then I really want to continue on with what I had been building, which was a coaching business. And so I've been uh, I would say stuck in the building phase where I'm like, oh wow, like I have a website. Oh wow, I have all these things, but like I don't have any paid clients. Like I'm not putting offers out. Like I have the offers, like I have the outlines, like I have the courses like here. And there's this like block of execution implementation, which is can feel weird because I've always been very good at implementation and execution in my prior corporate role. And then I also have a podcast that I started last year. And I also have original music that I released last month. And it's like those are two big things that I think will, like the podcast, I think helps as a funnel of like what my style is. And then the music for me is also like a very magnetic, attractive thing of like people will vibe with it or not and start to for me, the music is a lot of like the lessons learned from that, I think will transfer into the coaching. Um, it's very conscious and intentional. And so those are the three things that I'm really working with. And then my kind of struggle feels like a really big internal struggle is, I have a few months before I really need to consider having a part-time job or something to have income in the door. And I'm sort of like wrestling with the like, I know it takes time to build a client base, but like, can I do it? Like the whole rebellious, like my intention is like my intention, I think would really be like I have to think about the wording. I'll think about it more like throughout the class and during it, but it's really more of this like how can I really do it? Like can I really get clients in 90 days or 75 days? Like at least one or two. And like I feel like the answer is yes, but I'm like I don't know, like maybe I have to go back and get a full-time job and like that is like makes me sick. That makes me feel sick. So that's my push and pull internally.
Thank you for sharing.
You're welcome.
Your intention, do you want to share those out loud or do you want to share them by yourself?
I will once they form.
Okay.
Not formed yet. Yes.
Okay. Too early in the morning. Who would like to go next?
I'll share since I just turned my audio on. I can't remember what all of your recommendations were that we share, but my name is Suzanne. I am in practice in Atlanta, very near where Maria lives, for which I'm grateful. And we met at a conference a few weeks ago. I did not even see her talks. I just heard about her through other people and found her online. I actually made the mistake of putting out into the world my need for a new coach. It wasn't a mistake, but it was funny to realize that it had gotten out to the whole world. Okay, my little underbelly is now showing for everyone. I have a practice in Alpharetta or near Roswell, Alpharetta, and I am at the point where I either stay how I am and don't change anything and leave it, but I have this strong draw to create something new. I have this sort of feeling as though I'm birthing something right now. And I'm excited about it, and also really scared about it. So I've always said I had a fear of heights, and that applies not only to a physical fear of heights, like standing on top of buildings and that sort of mountains and bridges, but also a fear of heights for myself, because it's a long way to fall. And so, and then I also have the feeling of needing to do it all myself, and knowing that I can't do it all myself, and realizing I have to be connected to others for things like this to happen. So that requires me to open up my heart and realize my connections, and realize that all the resources I need are available to me. And my intention is to be present, because my desire is to be restless.
I love it. Thank you, Suzanne. Can you hear us?
Mhm.
Yeah, okay.
Should I go now, Maria? Yeah. So good to meet everybody. And I love hearing about your experiences too, and what you're going through and why you're here and everything. I can definitely relate to both of you. So I met Maria about almost 25 years ago, right? When we were
Yeah,
at,
call it.
oh my gosh, amazing. Yeah, in college or grad school, at University of Georgia, and have stayed in touch all these years. I've been kind of following her and watching her, build her business and career, and always been super inspired by you, Maria, definitely. Um, and so I put it out into the universe too, like, I'm at this kind of pivot point career-wise. So I was like, I really should reach out to Maria. And the universe just aligned us together, for this, which is awesome. So I'm a professor at the Medical University of South Carolina in Charleston, and I'm also a staff psychologist at the VA. And I do a lot of randomized clinical trials, and my colleagues and I have been working on this treatment over like 2 decades. And so it's at this place where we're getting like a lot more requests for, oh, cool. Yeah, in Columbia. Awesome. Close by. Yeah. So we're getting a lot more requests for trainings, like to train a lot of people on how to do this treatment. And we're building this online training website with some funding, but yet like there's a whole lot more that we really need to do. And I do feel like I'm at that block of execution and implementation, of like I'm getting the website going, and we're picking training dates. And we have about 6 or 7, professionals who will be trainers in it. But it's like, feels very vulnerable. I'm afraid of heights as well, both physically and mentally, although I didn't connect the two until you said it, Suzanne. Um, so I definitely feel that hesitation within me, and would like to kind of swim through that, so it doesn't hold me back or hold the team back too. So yeah, I'm here. I'm trying to be present because I'm very restless as well, and want to be, open to that growth and transformation.
Awesomeness. And what I would say, do you guys see how much commonalities, even though everybody is doing something different, how much commonalities there it is between the feedback? And I will tell you what got me into mindset coaching was I was exactly where Adriana was. Like I had the website, I had this, I had that, but I didn't have clients. And it was like, wow, where do I go from there? And how old is everyone? So let me just finish my segment and then we can answer that. And I couldn't understand why, because I was very successful in academics. I was very successful in corporate. And I was like, I don't understand. Why am I so stuck now? And it was those fears. And back then I didn't have much knowledge about the subconscious and how it affects us, how it affects our results. So having gone through that journey, it's been an amazing experience. Yeah, so I can so relate to all of you, and I'm so excited that you're here because that's the game changes. I have fear of heights, by the way, and I have to find, actually, I'm going to find a blog that I have about that. It's one of my favorite blogs. I don't know if it's migrated to the new website, but I will find it and share it. And yeah, it's to me taking that free fall, it's like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. And then you take the free fall and you're like, oh, wow, this is beautiful, right? but we have to trust and surrender to be able to take the free fall. Yeah. And I think, Suzanne, I think, I'm 47 and I quit my job when I was 39. So I literally started rediscovering myself at the age of 39. And what I'll honestly tell you is that it's incredible. It's only been 8 years and I'm experiencing life in a completely different way. Um, the old stressed, anxious, scared of everything. What are people going to think about me and all of that, which was holding me completely hostage. I've let go of so much of that. And it's so cool to experience life in this free fall, surrender, know everything is happening for you type of way. It requires us though to work from the inside out instead of from the outside in, which is the way most of us are trained. So all that said, let me see, I took okay. So Suzanne, I briefly mentioned it before that I have one break planned, but if if you guys are like, okay, my head is about to explode or this is too much or I need to go to the bathroom, just, wave your hands. This is nothing that, we have to go like this, quite the opposite. I want you to be very comfortable. I want you guys to be cozy where you are. And I want you to be open and vulnerable. Granted, I know you don't know each other so well, but what I will tell you is that vulnerability will help you process everything so much faster. It would actually almost like give others permission to be like, wow, if she's so brave to share, I can share too. This is a safe place. This is not a place of judgment. Please note that I may ask you questions which are uncomfortable, and that's not to put you down, to to dismiss you. It's to get you to dig deep into stuff that's uncomfortable and perhaps you haven't dealt with it, right? Just know that everything comes absolutely from a place of love and support and wanting to support you through your journey. One thing, if somebody starts crying, I will tell you I'm a crier. Our intuition is to like hop in and save them, right? To be like, oh, you're gonna be okay. Like it's, if somebody's having a moment and releasing stuff, just let them be, right? And they might start sobbing, which is uncomfortable to watch. And again, I don't know what's coming, but just like be okay with it. It's actually something that we have to grow through, right? Because again, growth is uncomfortable. And I give all of you kudos for showing up here, because just the fact that you're here, that says a lot, right? Okay. That said, any questions before we dive in? No? Okay. Okay, and I'm actually going to share my screen. I love how Zoom is. Okay, let's see. Can you guys see this bar? It's not blocking the information, right? And you know what? You're welcome. As long as there's no noise around you, you're welcome to stay unmuted so you don't have to get distracted and mute and unmute. Yes. Okay, I'm going to shrink that. To do this. Okay. Let's see. Can I show this? Okay. Can you see well?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So let's dive right in. So key. Assume that you know nothing. Remember how I said in the beginning, your brain is brilliant in finding ways to tune out stuff which it finds threatening. And when we're talking about information, which may require you to step outside your comfort zone and show up in a different way, your brain might be saying, I know this, I know this, I know this. And that's its way of saying, don't pay attention, don't pay attention, don't pay attention. And especially if you have a restless mind, you might catch yourself having to go back and forth. So why am I saying that? Because one of our keywords will be self-awareness. Throughout this entire journey, one of your biggest tasks is to stay aware of your own state. How much do I start thinking about what am I going to do after this versus staying present, right? What am I starting to think about that has nothing to do with this versus this? Is anything that is being shared triggering you, causing some kind of like strong emotion, whether it's happiness or joy, or maybe you're starting to get irritated or pissed off? Those are all things that you want to pay attention to. If you want to make notes, on those, I encourage you to do so and put some kind of markation system, maybe a star or something that's like, come back to this. I highly, highly, highly encourage you to take notes. I was going back and forth between sharing the presentation and not, and I chose not to send it. I'm totally happy to send it after, is because I'm sure probably most of you know that when we take notes, especially with our hand, that creates a special connection between the brain and the notes that we're taking, So I highly encourage you to, whatever your style is, words, key points, go ahead and make those notes. Like we already mentioned, being intentional, asking questions, that's so key. Going down the rabbit hole is that's like when you hear one thing and instead of staying present on it, you start like going back, and next thing you know, you have no idea why you started thinking about it, but you're completely off track with what we are talking about. And if you catch yourself there and if you're having a hard time returning back to us, share and we can talk about it and we can start implementing some tools to take us back. And just know that what we're presenting here, depending on how far you're in your growth journey and what you have already been exposed to or not, this will challenge a lot of the way you have done life so far and a lot of what you have been taught. I will tell you my first mindset summit that I attended, which was like 8 years ago. Um, I literally got on stage in front of 200 people and I sobbed because I was so lost and so confused. And my mind was just like exploding. So just stay with it. Know that this is a process. This is not going to be something that you're going to change overnight, and just embrace the process. And just know that there's nothing wrong with you, right? You are where you are. You're at the perfect place today. And we're just starting this new journey, and that's okay. Makes sense?
Mhm.
And I already said, this is a safe place for us, right? So what we share and what we are vulnerable, we're going to respect that and keep it in this group, yes? Okay. So two big words that come when it gets to the intent for this class. And I have attended a ton of mindset work. And what the general commonality between those is you go, whether they're a day or a weekend or a week, you go, you're like, oh my gosh, yes, I got this. And then you go back to real world and reality kind of like smacks you in the face and you're like, oh yeah, I don't got this. And you go back to where you started. So really my intent for this, and that's why we're taking the fire hose approach today, is we're starting with this workshop because here I'm going to share a lot of the key concepts that you're very likely going to bump on the journey. And then how do we work through those? And the only thing that will help you rewire your brain is to take action. And it's the type of action that's outside the comfort zone, which is why we avoid it, right? Where we're like, oh, I want to take it, but yeah, not really, right? And we start getting confused and we start feeling lost. And then that takes away our confidence. So this is meant to build your confidence. This is meant to start creating momentum. Like by the end of the 6 weeks, Adriana, I want you to have your clients. So where you're like, oh my gosh, I got this. I don't have to get a new job, right? So actually something very interesting about this example, again, not picking on Adriana, is I can get another job. And I'll tell you, when I started my journey, I was like, well, I can always go back to corporate, right? So that gives us a safety cushion. So instead of being focused on, I will make this work, it's like, well, yes, but if I don't, I'm really going to be okay. And I can go back to my comfort zone, right? And why is it that most people don't grow? Because guess which one is easier? It's so much easier to go back to comfort zone instead of go through. And Adriana, I don't even know if you know that, but about 6 months into my journey, I was in a pretty low point after I quit. Financially things were getting rough. Things in my house were not good because my hubby and I were fighting. He was not supportive of the change that I took. Friends were dropping left and right. People were making fun of me for the stupid decision I had made. It was lonely. It was not a good, bright place. And I got your boss, Adriana, your ex-boss, reached out. See, you don't know that. And he had gotten promoted, and he said, I got promoted. I need a CFO. Interested? And I was like, my first reaction was, oh my gosh, to go back to what I know. And, thinking 8 to 5, it was never 8 to 5, but like to get a paycheck, right? Like to all of that comfort that was there. And like here, it's given to me. I don't even have to ask for it. And I very well remember that was on a Friday. And I told him, I said, let me sleep on that. I did not share the offer with a single person, especially my husband, because I knew, like, oh my gosh, you have a CFO offer and you're choosing to be like broke and lost and like miserable. Like, who chooses that? And I had to tune into my intuition, and my intuition said, don't do it. And on Monday morning, I texted him back and I was like, I can't do that. And that was scary. That in itself was scary because I didn't have, a business. I didn't have anything that was like, okay, I got this business. So, but that was one of the best decisions that I made. And those are the type of decisions that we're going to have to learn to make over and over and over again so that we can be propelled forward. And what are most people going to do in a situation like that? They'll be like, you know what? This thing is not for me. Let me just go back to what I know. So another thing I'm going to tell you is like, and Suzanne knows this, I share a lot of my personal experiences. A lot of coaches don't do that because they're like, well, you need to see me in this light. I actually find for me, the opposite works. When I share with vulnerability, the way things didn't work for me, and you can relate to me, I think you can be like, oh my gosh, I feel that exact same way. So it's almost like encouragement and knowing that there is a way out, right? So throughout the presentation, I'll share a lot of these things with you. Okay. So again, focus, self-awareness, rewiring your thinking, taking action outside of the comfort zone so that you can start producing the results that you want. Know that everything I'm sharing here is kind of like oversimplified. We're not going to study science. We're not going to study why the brain works the way that it does. It's just going to be very practical. And no, I want you to take those notes because this is going to become almost like your reference guide as you're going through the journey. As you bump into one of these, I want you to be like, oh, we talked about that. Let's see what notes I took. I have probably a stack of like that of mindset notes that I used to reference more. Now I don't. But I'll be like, oh my gosh, we talked about that. What did he say about it? Right. And I'll look through them. So what are the results that we're looking for? We're looking for your state of being. We want you to start feeling confident, right? We want you to stop doubting yourself, or even when you do, to be able to interrupt and rewire and go, okay, I got this. You have this group. I started a WhatsApp group last night, and part of the WhatsApp group is when you feel like you're stuck and frozen, go in there and ask for support. Guys, I'm feeling stuck. When you hear it from others who believe in you, then you're going to start, that's going to help you start believing in yourself just a little bit more. And that's all that it takes to take that one action. Revenue, for those of you who are just starting, it's starting to see some revenue. For those of you who are already generating revenue and want to grow your revenue, you want to see the growth in the revenue, right? We want to start seeing new productive habits, not just any habit, but habits that actually get you to take action and produce results, right? We're going to talk about self-sabotaging patterns, and you're going to see how our brains tend to, we have habits that help us do exactly the opposite thing. So we want to get away from those and towards the productive ones. And very importantly, we want to start creating momentum. We want to see the ball turning so that you're like, yes, yes, I got this, versus like, oh no, let me just stay where I am. Okay. And like I said, please interrupt me as you want to, as questions come up. Okay. So let's start with the big one, and that is the conscious versus subconscious mind. If I had to guess, I think everybody in here has heard about that. But if you can see in front of yourself the picture of an iceberg, we have the top of the iceberg, which we can actually see, that is our conscious mind. And then we have the big chunk of the iceberg, which is underneath water, which we don't see, and most people have absolutely no awareness about, and that is the subconscious. So why is it so important to be aware of what's in our subconscious? Because that's where our beliefs, our patterns, that is where that silent voice that if you're not aware of but it drives you. It gets you to, it fires up automatically, and it gets you to make decisions whether you're aware of it or not. So what we want to become is we want to become very consciously aware. So instead of functioning on autopilot and totally unintentionally, we want to be able to pause, really consider what our options are, know that we have options, know that there is a different perspective, and take a different action, because it's the different action that's going to produce the different result. Our subconscious forms by the time we're about 6, 7, 8, and our subconscious forms based on our need for safety and love. So when a baby is born, The baby starts with the brain that's kind of like a blank canvas. And if you think, if you have been around little kids, they are fearless, right? They jump off sofas, they've got no fear, they throw themselves in the water, they know they can be an astronaut, right? And they believe it. And then mom and dad or whoever is raising them comes and goes, oh, you're gonna get hurt. Oh, don't do that. Oh, that's not safe. Oh, shame on you for doing that, right? So that kid starts developing, the subconscious starts creating the neurological pathways of how to see the world, how to see life, how to experience life, knowing that it needs mom and dad there for safety and love. And very interestingly, the subconscious develops in our childhood years when we need those people supporting, without them, we're not going to survive. But very interestingly, we take those habits and that thinking into our adult life. Again, most of us absolutely unaware of where all of that is coming from. So we have to learn to distinguish the inner voices in our head. Are those voices ours? Or are those voices of somebody from our past that is telling us, do this, don't do that? The way I look at the brain is I look at the brain as a database. And again, it starts blank as a canvas. And as we go through the things that we are taught, as we go through our personal experiences in life, and the adults in our lives tell us how to see those experiences, that database starts being created. So then we see the world, we experience the world through our senses. That goes into our database. It looks for something that's already there, or it looks for something that looks very close to it, and then it spits out a thought. That thought now, could be a thought of, I got this, or oh, I'm not sure I want to do this. I don't know what people are going to say about me. And what if I fail? I don't know. So depending on the quality of the thought, you're going to take a different type of action, because there is going to be a different, I like to talk a lot about vibrations, a different type of vibrational emotion that is birthed from that. That results in an action or lack of action. That action produces results. So if you ever find yourself going like, man, the same thing keeps happening over and over to me, or you keep trying to take action and you experience the same emotions, or you start feeling the same way, guess where that is coming back from? It's coming back from your database, where all of those a lot of times limiting beliefs are being hosted. So what we want to, the way we become consciously aware, we start becoming aware of like, where did that come from? Is that my voice? No, that's not my voice. And sometimes you know whose voice it is. You might hear very clearly, let's say your mom or your dad or a friend or your grandparent. And sometimes you'll be like, I have no idea. Very importantly, regardless of which one it is, please note, don't get stuck on that, because that becomes another safety mechanism of, well, I'm just going to overanalyze everything and not move forward because I have to figure out why I have this voice, right? So, and remember, the only thing that will break down your belief system is action, 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 action. I want you to think of your state of being, the way you think, the way you feel, the way you behave. That creates your personality, and your personality creates your reality. So, you guys, well, two things. The second homework question, which is who are you going to become as you grow up, right? That is super, super important, because basically what we're going to change is the way you think, the way you feel, and the way you act, right? So very, very key. Triggers, I already mentioned those. Triggers could be, I got angry, I got pissed off, I got hurt, I got sad, I got happy, whatever it is. Triggers are super useful because triggers provide us feedback, and we have to start thinking about them in a positive perspective. I just got pissed off. I wonder why. What about that got me to react in a certain way? So again, jotting down triggers, I think, is super, super helpful. And again, if you want to share any of those, feel free to do that. Something else very important, our mind and that's our thoughts. Our body, that's our emotions. So sometimes people say, well, I'm going to fake the universe and pretend that my vibes are great. And you say something and you say, I am confident, and you feel your body just doing this. That's your body experiencing the emotion. So now what's happening is your mind or your thoughts and your emotions, your body are out of alignment. We're going to talk about alignment. But when life changes is when our thinking, feeling, and acting are all in alignment. And I think I forgot to mention this, but just so you guys know, and you probably already do, is our conscious mind is the mind of logic, of common sense, of critical thinking, of making choices. However, it is supported by the subconscious. So now, as we're going through this journey, you're going to, and we're going to talk about that as well. It may become a loud battlefield in your head because you're going to be fighting your logic, your common sense, going, oh my gosh, this does not make sense. Why am I doing this? And it's about creating that confidence to be like, I know why I'm doing this. I'm confident and I'm moving forward. Yes. So, super, super, super important slide. Are you moving away or are you moving towards? Yes. If you guys can start seeing life from this perspective, all that this is, it's a different perspective of life. That is all. And when I created this slide, I purposely kind of created, the antonyms on the right side, right? Hatred, love, frustration, fulfillment, so that you can see where the polarity exists. Because away, if you look at any of those feelings or any of those experiences, is yeah. And if you guys want to speak up, I just saw Suzanne. Sorry, I just saw the comment. Just speak up because I'm trying to follow notes and follow this and pay attention to you guys. So my brain cannot stay focused. The away fires up our sympathetic nervous system. That is our fight, our flight, our freeze. So now when you go, I'm going to launch this new program. Oh, I don't know how I'm going to do that. And guess what happens? That shuts you down because your brain is going, the lion is coming. Brace for a run. And that blocks your creativity, that blocks your innovation, that blocks any type of problem solution that you might be working on, because your body has only one goal right now, is to escape the threat. Shift to the towards, that is the parasympathetic nervous system. That is our rest and digest system. That is the system where we thrive because we are present, we are grounded, we are intentional. We come from a place of heart, from a place of love. It feels good because you know where you're going. It's like, I got this, I am thriving, I feel good. Can you guys feel how the vibrations are different? And again, speaking of vibrations, I think of the way as the low vibrations and the toward as the high vibrations. So I ask you right now, question of awareness is, and I do this thing, if you see it in my notes, you see JP. And for me, that's a journaling prompt. And sometimes when I do this, I'll put JP, meaning you can journal if you would like to on that. But it's ask yourself, where are you today? Are you in a way or are you in toward? And one of your big intentions and points of awareness as we go on this journey would be to learn when you catch yourself that you're in a way to pause and say, whoa, 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 no, 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 no. I'm going to ask a question that's going to put me in a toward state. So now, instead of being in a state of overwhelm, I am totally focused on the task at hand. Any questions on that? This is super, super, super important.
What are some of those questions, Maria, to ask yourself if you find yourself in this away state or more in the away state? What are some of those questions to ask yourself to go more in the towards?
So, it depends on the situation that you're in, but one of the simplest ones that you can literally ask through any of those is this the truth? Okay, I want to launch this course and I don't know what to do. And I feel frustrated. So did you really not know what to do? Do you
Mhm.
really not know? Has your experience and success so far proved that you do know what to do and that you do it well?
Mhm.
So, but that is the battlefield that's going to start in, right? Because
Yeah.
the bigger part of you, the becoming part of you, will go, heck yes, you know how to do this. But the one that's pulling you to safety will go, no, 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 because you haven't done this before. You have done other things, but you haven't done that before.
Uh-huh.
Right? So now, and it's okay to have that internal talk. You literally will start feeling a little bit crazy because you will start having those conversations inside
Ooh.
your head
Okay.
where you're like going, oh my gosh. Like, and sometimes, like, Suzanne actually shared something with me last week, right? Where she was like, oh my gosh, just shut up. Like, and I have a lot of this conversation. Just shut up. I don't need your input right now. I got this, right? And I think I even put it into the prompt for the journaling questions because I sometimes literally have to talk my brain out of, you know what? Thank you. I heard you. I don't need to hear anymore. I'm moving forward because I trust, I surrender, and I know I'm always taken care of. But I have to ask. So, is there a situation that pops into your head, Sudhi, right now?
Well, when you talk about it like that, I can definitely relate, and I'm taking notes too, in terms of like, oh, I really want to start this new training program. I really want to get this off the ground, but I don't know what to do. It feels overwhelming. So yeah, I'm just gonna ask myself, do I really not know what to do? Yes, I can come up with an outline. I can outline these steps, and then I'll feel overwhelmed by all the steps. And then I'll use this, approach to tell myself something else, even if it's like, not listening to you. I'm just going to move forward. I'm taking the action anyway. And I'm just going to start somewhere, taking those steps towards making it happen.
Yes. And look at what the opposing word is of overwhelm, focus, right?
Um,
Because
yeah. Cool.
exactly what you just said. Oh my gosh, I have to do all of these things and I haven't done any of them before. How the
Yeah.
heck am I going to do this? So start with
Uh-huh.
one. What
Yeah.
is the one step that feels the safest, right?
Yeah.
And you will see in the beginning, it's going to be like baby steps, right? I'm just going to take this one and just like test it out. And then you're going
Mhm.
to be like, oh, look at that, it worked. And now you're going to be like, oh, okay, I survived. Okay, let's take the next bigger one. And what you see that's going to happen over time, you're going to be like, oh, heck no, I'm not taking that little baby steps. I'm going to go here. Now, very important, you guys. There is a chance that the way you do things may not work out. And we're going to talk about failure, but just know there is no failure. There is only feedback. So if you decided to skip through the steps, and go to the fifth steps because you're like, you know what, I feel ballsy, let's do this. And you're like, oh crap, that's okay. What could I do now differently? If you don't look at it as well, I should have known better. I knew it in my head that I shouldn't have rushed through this. I knew it was going to be a mistake. If you start going down that rabbit hole, guess where you are? You're into that away, sympathetic, freeze or freeze, shuts you down. You don't want to do this again because it just proved to you that you're not good enough and you can't move forward. Versus, all right, you know what? I took a risk. How proud am I from myself for taking this big action and showing up like as a big person and trusting and believing, all right, let's go. Let's do it again. Do you see the difference in the vibration between the two?
Mhm.
Yeah. Now, in the beginning, it might take you a while to get from here to here, and that's totally okay. But over time, what you're going to see is that that window of transition from away to toward is going to start shrinking. And you're going to start moving and taking steps much faster because you will have that pride of experience of, okay, I got it. It's asking me to change something. Let's change it and let's test it again, right? And you just keep going, repeat test, repeat test, repeat test, learn, grow, learn, grow, learn, grow. And then, you will start seeing the results, right? It might be in the beginning getting one client. That's okay, right? And then that client is going to tell somebody else. Now you're going to get two clients. You might start that online program and you might get feedback that, somebody didn't like something on the online program. So how are some people going to take that? Well, I knew that program was not going to work. I'm just not gonna bother with it. I'm not just gonna shut it down. No, feedback is fantastic. It's telling you, I want at the end of class today, this is the first time I'm doing this. I want your feedback. Was this helpful to you? That is the intent, right? Because I'm going to grow through your feedback. This program is going to grow through the feedback. I have to be open to the feedback and know it's not personal, right? So we take feedback as growth. We take our triggers as growth. We start looking everything like, I mean, a friend of mine laughs at me. She goes, you always have the pink glasses on. Like, yes, I choose to wear my pink glasses on, right? You have to remember that that is a choice, you guys. Do we want to wear the black glasses or do we want to wear the pink glasses? I will tell you that I guarantee you, you will experience life in a completely different way should you choose to wear the pink glasses. Yes, makes sense.
Wait, can we talk about the pink glasses for a second? And the black glasses, like the analogy or the metaphor.
Yeah.
So something that I think happens to me is, and of course, it's a big trigger sometimes when I have people be like, the be realistic. That's a favorite. But like there's something to be said about taking the action and not staying in like rose-colored glasses land, or not rose-colored, but like not seeing things as they are. So I think, I don't know, maybe could you speak just a little bit to that concept? Because it sometimes I can get a little stuck in the, how optimistic, how idealistic. I can be very visionary, and then I'm like, oh, come back down to earth. Like, there needs to be that action, that is paired with it. So just
Yeah.
maybe
So
comment.
two things, and we're going to talk about this because that's a big one, is you have to become very, very, very careful. When I say this, like with all seriousness, who you ask for advice. Because if you ask somebody who is in their comfort zone and they're cruising along and they're choosing to wear their black glasses and they have no concept of any of these, which mind is operating there? It is the mind of common sense logic. And they're like, what the hell are you doing? It doesn't make sense. I heard that. You guys, I'm so glad I chose to trust my intuition. And I'm an example, a live example, that when you stay true to you, things work out. You will not always hear encouragement. You will not always hear kind words. So that you have to become very intentional with who you choose to ask. Everything in life is a balance, right? If you become so pink glasses, and we're going to tell you, I think one of the slides has masculine versus feminine energy. So you can be like, I am so nurturing. I am so pink. I'm always in a state of Zen, and I take no action. Well, that's really, you're so far off on the other side, on the visionary, like imaginary. You're living in this like imaginary world, but you're not doing anything to move towards it, right? So that's again awareness on your part. You have to know where that balance is for you, because there is something that I call, Suri, I don't know if that really exists as like a psychology term, but I call it fake happiness, right? I'm so happy. I really am miserable inside, but I'm just going to pretend that I'm so happy, and I'm going to tell everybody how happy and perfect everything is. That is unhealthy.
Yeah, like more denial of what they're actually
Yeah.
experiencing. And it's kind of away from some things they need to work on,
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So this is also a coping mechanism.
Yeah.
So that's where the self-awareness of and being honest with yourself, that's a big one, guys. And sometimes acknowledging that, okay, yeah, I see that was on me, right?
Mhm.
Or, yep, I said I'm going to do it and I didn't do it because I was too busy envisioning. And this is something else I'll tell you. Things like meditation and journaling and staying present and finding tools to stay present are fantastic. They are necessary as part of this journey. But if you go to the extreme of you're meditating all day long and you're not taking any action, you can meditate all that you want. You have to take the action, right? When you're in a state where you're in an elevated, high vibrational state, yes, things will get attracted to you, but it still requires action. It's never going to be like, well, I'm just going to chill here and just wait for things to happen, right? And I think that's where, do you guys remember that movie, The Secret? Do you remember The Secret?
Mm.
Have you seen that movie?
Yeah.
Well, you can check it out, but there's also the book, but it basically talks about the law of attraction, how when you vibrate high, you attract everything that's high vibrational to you. Well, the point that it misses there is the action part. So people read it, or I'll tell you, people go to a lot of these self-development seminars, summits, and so forth, and they come back and they say, well, they don't work. It's not that the summit doesn't work. It's that you're not taking the uncomfortable action which is required for you to work through these steps, right? So again, this is the theory, but where you're really going to get the value of this is when you put this theory into practice. If you just know it, great. What is it doing for you? Nothing. Now, this week, you're going to start the week and you're going to be super aware. Am I in sympathetic mode, escaping things, anticipating the lion? Or am I in a toward, moving towards something? Okay, if I'm here, ask the questions. Am I aware? Yes, I am. Fantastic. Now what? You're not going to be like, okay, great, I'm aware. Now let's go back to the away state. No, 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 no. Now you're going to take the action that goes along with the toward state. Does that make sense, Adriana? Yeah,
Yes, it does. Thank you.
good. You're welcome. Anything else? This is like one of the key slides that if you reference it, like make a mental note, take a picture of it. Like I said, I will share the presentation after, but like print it out, put it in front of you, whatever, put it in your purse, whatever works for you, reference it, remember it, game changer. Yeah. Okay. So we talked about how our thinking, our feeling, our behaving develops our personality, and then our personality drives our identity and how we show up in life. So that second question that we answered is, who are you becoming? You have to start today acting as that person. Because when you want to step into that person, is you have to act as that person. You can't become that person if you're staying here going, well, it's so inspiring to watch her, and I'm just going to watch her and admire her. Again, what's going to close the gap? Action, right? So we have to start the way you answer that question of how does she behave? Anybody wants to pop in and share like a couple of the things that came up of how is that new you going to behave?
So it would be, I don't have to even look back at my notes. She would be, first of all, much more kind to myself, being more curious with myself and others. She would be more patient, both with myself and others. More verbally praising. So, well, you look beautiful today. I'm so grateful for you. Thank you so much. More appreciative. Thank you so much for doing this thing. Thank you for being this way. Um, uh, More attractive, not in a physical way per se, but like in a, it's already coming to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I would say probably patient is the big one from that list.
Okay. So, Suzanne, can you think of something, could be something totally simple, where you take a different action of where you're now versus where you're becoming? Suzanne 2.0 or 3.0?
Hmm. One of the things I do that's really simple is in the shower, I use a washcloth and I imagine washing a baby, right? Like, look at your beautiful skin. I'm so in love with your beautiful skin as I'm washing. Look at your gorgeous hair. I love to put my hands in your beautiful hair, right? Like just speaking positivity. And then the second thing is when I walk into the exam room with a patient, the first thing I say is, good morning, love. Good morning, beautiful. Good afternoon. Just words of love and affirmation and speaking positivity to my patients. So when our first engagement is me speaking words of affirmation to them, and then holding a hug longer than I normally do, and then taking a deep breath in that hug, like, I'm so glad to see you today. And then being grateful and verbally saying, I'm so grateful. I know you could have chosen to be a lot of places today, so I'm so grateful that you chose to be here.
Now, Sudi and Adriana, can you imagine being greeted like that by your doctor?
Yeah, I would love that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Is that the experience we usually get? Not so much. Can you imagine being there and being hugged by your doctor and being thanked for being there? And
Yeah.
like, how cool is that of an experience? And what kind of bond does it create with the other person? Right? And if we can manage to create those kind of bonds with our colleagues, with our patients, with our friends, how much different would life be? How much different would you experience life versus, oh, good to see you. How are you doing? Fine, good, good. Move forward, right? No intentionality, just pass through. I'm too busy to deal with you, right? And something very interesting Suzanne brought, which again we'll talk about here, is being kind and loving to yourself. We are generally decent at being kind and supportive of others. When it comes to ourselves, sometimes better than others, right? The self-talk that goes on autopilot can be stuff you'll never ever tell anybody else. So to what Suzanne said, being complimentary and kind, and when things don't go your way, what's the, I tell people all the time, like I used to be a professional self-beater. I was so good at it. Of course you messed up. Of course you fucked up, right? No, 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 no. Like we have to rewire that. Give yourself grace, give yourself love, give yourself patience, because again, one is away, one is towards. And we really can't show others and love others and not be judgy of others unless we learn to do that for ourselves. So the healing starts with us first. And I was talking months ago, maybe even a year ago, to somebody, and she said, well, I don't see how this work is going to help me grow my business. Who we are as a person and how we show up as a person has absolutely something to do with the way your business is and your growth, right? So we have to be solid into who we are and how we nurture ourselves and how we take care of ourselves so that we be confidently on that path to becoming. Thank you for sharing, Suzanne. Anything else on this slide? Okay, two more notes I have put myself on this one is, and we already talked a little bit about that, but is the voice, oh, that's on the next slide. No wonder I have moved on. Your intuition. This is what changed my life. I started doing Pilates. It was a very type of different workout than the HIIT type of loud music, what is your heart rate, intense workouts I used to do. And I was very unimpressed by it originally. But what it did is for that hour being completely focused on my body, focused, right? Remember where focus was in that toward column? Really allowed me to quiet my mind. You will only hear your intuition when your mind is quiet. If you have the mumbo jumbo, the 500 things, your mind spinning miles and hours, miles and miles an hour, there is no way you can tune into your intuition. So this journey is learning how to tune into your intuition, how to connect to it, and then a big one, trusting it. Because many times your intuition will tell you to do crazy things, such as resign your 17-year career that you have spent years and years and thousands of dollars studying for, right? And start doing something completely different that has nothing to do with it. That's kind of crazy. And people were like, what? They're like, why are you doing this? And how does it sound when you say, well, my intuition told me to do so? And they're like, oh my gosh, something is not right, right? So that is where you have to be careful of who you share with what. Because some people might really think as you go through this journey that you are going crazy. My husband, I think, still some days thinks that when he hears the type of stuff I do and how I do them. And you know what? He's entitled to his opinion. I do me. I've told him that. I love you, babe. You do you. I'm going to do me. And we're just going to learn to live like that, right? Because especially when it gets to investments and financials and stuff like that. And sometimes he's like, Maria, you're a finance major. Yes, I know. Like, I'm not irresponsible. But sometimes I take those risks and those scary steps, which I know work for me. You don't have to understand them. People won't always understand the things that you're doing, and just be very grounded in that. you will have to learn to distinguish the voices in your head. Is it my voice or is it the sound of somebody else? A big rule there is the sound of somebody else will put you in the away category. The sound of your intuition will always lead you forward. Does that make sense? So your intuition will lead you to growth and expansion and creativity, right? Your intuition will guide you into bigger and better, even if sometimes it doesn't feel like that's the case. Another very key concept, and again, I think there is a slide on that. We have to learn to be guided by the internal versus the external. The way most of us are conditioned and raised up is, you have to get that promotion. You have to grow, which is nothing wrong if it's in alignment with you and if it's something that you want. You have to do X, you have to do Y. And it's like, yes, by my intuition is telling me to do something completely different. So which one do you choose to listen to? What do most people choose to listen to? To the external. It's easier to listen to the external because most of the times the external will keep you in your comfort zone. The external is going to say, stay in that finance job because that's what you know, that's what you studied. The intuition is saying, no, but you love movement. Go after that. So which one do you choose to listen? So another point of awareness for you on this journey would be, when do you disregard your intuition? Or maybe right now you're like, oops, I know exactly what she's talking about. And once again, the only thing that will strengthen your trust into your intuition would be practice. Because once you do it once and you're like, look at that. Then you do the second thing and you go, oh my gosh, this really works. By the third time, there is like, you don't even need to think about it because you just know my spouse, my friend, my colleague, my boss, or my intuition. No debate. My intuition wins every time. One other thing, and there is again a slide on that, is we have to be careful. Is it ego or intuition? Because ego keeps us safe. Ego very quickly pokes its ugly head out to save you. And it can feel like arrogance. It can feel like, what's the word I'm looking for? Like almost like harshness. It's again, a lot of that away energy. So that's something else that we want to start tapping into. Is this ego or is this intuition? And intuition and authenticity, they go hand in hand. So 8 years into my journey, I was just having a reflection on that maybe a couple of weeks ago, is I had all the signs through my entire journey of how I was out of alignment with who I am. I've always been very playful, like in a silly type of way. And like, like I'll come and like poke you, and I could do that in the corporate space. And people are like, what the hell is wrong with her? Because in corporate space, that is not appropriate, right? Or like I can throw in a joke that's like totally inappropriate. And it's never meant bad. It's just who I am. But throughout my entire life, I can totally hear the voices of, my parents, the people around me, my teachers. And then when I got into corporate, you are too passionate. You are too loud. You are inappropriate. You are this, you are that. So what did I do? I took that feedback and I started changing who I am so that I can fit in. And I thought that's what you're supposed to do. That's like growing up, right? You have to be like everybody else. The magic of this journey is being like nobody else. The magic of this journey is being exactly you. And it sounds so cool until you go into the real world and people look at you as like, what's wrong with you? You should not talk like that. You should not speak like that. You should not laugh like that. Do this. Like the other day, a client did an exercise and I'm literally there like jumping and clapping and going, yes, yes, yes. And she comes out and she goes, who are you? Like with the biggest grin on her face. And I'm like, that is so me. I'm so in the right job for this because this is exactly what people around me, they make a step forward and I'm like, yes, you got this. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. But that didn't fit into the finance world. So I did all of these things that I was told I should get a good job. I should be in a corporate job. I should act in a specific way in corporate. And I did. And now I will tell you guys, the biggest piece of liberty and freedom is being who you are. One of the hardest things of your journey would be parting, especially with people, because not everybody is going to accept you as who you are. And that's okay, but it does hurt. Because you might have relationship with friends from your childhood years. You might have friends who don't understand why, you're so focused on your business, why you have a launch of, your new training and you can't show up to their, to go grab coffee or brunch or whatever. People will walk away from you. People will talk behind your back. And I'm sharing this with you because it's a lot. And I just don't want to sugarcoat it because just know. And you know what? Maybe in your life it won't happen. But I just got a text from a client this morning. She's traveling. And she was like, ay. She's like, this is no longer fun. I was like, yeah. Right? Because you start feeling the misalignment when you start tuning to yourself. You start feeling the misalignment with people, places. This is why a lot of times when people start growing, let's say in a couple, you start seeing a lot of divorce. You start seeing a lot of separation because you start feeling that gap, right? So, and I will tell you, my husband and I are a great example of we absolutely felt that. And if we've had to be very intentional to work through that. Are things perfect? No. However, I'll tell you, I'm very proud for the journey we have walked. And I tell him that because most people would have quit a very long time ago. But it has been intentional. It hasn't been like all roses, right? We've both had to have very serious conversations about, well, that's who you want me to show up with. I no longer choose to show up as and making you happy. I'm going to choose to make myself happy. And if you're okay with that and, be on this journey of life with me, I absolutely want that. And if you don't, it's going to suck, but that's okay. You have to make your choice and I have to make my choice. And that's you have to you have to work through all of that in a way that's aligned with you. But I will tell you, once you get a taste of stepping into authenticity, you will never ever ever settle for going back, because the vibrations and the way you experience life will be nothing like you have experienced before. And like, I literally mean that. Like, I'm so passionate about all of this because I didn't like study it in a book and now I'm coming to teach it to you. Like, I have lived through every single one of these slides and everything that I'm sharing with you, right? So I know it is possible. Is it a journey? Absolutely. Are some days going to be not as fun as others? Absolutely. But you can do it. If I can do it, you can do it. Yes. So, another thing is, no, some people will walk away. That's okay, because they're going to open space for new people to come in. And those new people will vibrate like you. They will think like you. They will understand you. They will celebrate you. They will embrace you as exactly who you are, the crazy, playful, rebellious soul that you are. And in life is so much fun when you're around people like that versus around people who have judgment and want to gossip behind your back and all of that. That just drains your energy. Why? Because you go into that away state. You have to guard yourself and protect yourself versus being exactly who you are. So I've put that as journaling prompts if you want to make a notes of those, but think about how should you behave as you fill in the blank, as a healthcare professional, as a wife, as a girlfriend, as a daughter, as a mom, as whatever it is out there for you. Because like my wild side, you guys, Sudi actually knows about that. Sudi, I guarantee you, I have that VCR that we recorded one day when you came to visit me in my apartment. You know what I'm going with that? And
Yeah.
we sang, it was either I'm like a virgin or one of these songs. I guarantee you I have a recording of that video somewhere.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's awesome.
And you guys, I would be this corporate person, suited professional. And then at night, dancing has always been my thing. I'll go to the clubs and I'll be the girl who dances on top of the bar. Like that was like a side of me that a lot of my corporate people didn't know because what? Like my manager goes to bars and dances on the bar, yes, right? But that side had to be separate than the professional me, right?
Mhm.
Because the two didn't go together. And I had to live almost like two lives, right? The one that's like fun and is exciting and goes to the gym and is loud. And then the other one that's like, yes, let's talk about the financials, right? And now when I see it, I knew it then, but it never clicked that I had created this like dual personality so that I can fit into the world as I'm supposed to. So think about where are there places in your life that you're giving up your authenticity, right? You're not listening to your intuition so that you can fit in, so that people can say nice things about you, so that people can, because guess what? The way people see you actually has nothing to do with you. They see you through their own glasses. So if their own glasses say, I see somebody dancing on a bar and they assign, well, she's irresponsible, she's slutty, she's whatever, right? That's their glasses. That's their view of the world. That's not my view. I'm just having fun. I'm just having a ball, right? You're the one judging me. And that goes very much into be careful when you judge others because that's your beliefs speaking. And we'll talk about that as well. And then the other thing is point of awareness is as you go through your week, pay attention. Where do you not act the way that you really want to act because you have to do something, you must do something, you should do something? Those are the things that are going to, and I'll tell you, I do a lot of this with clients on the movement side. And they come and they're like, oh my gosh, I totally do what you told me I do. Like, it's like they've done this for like 50, 60 years. And they're like, no, I don't think I do that. And I'm like, okay, just start paying attention. And they come back like, oh, you were right. I totally do that. Right? Because now they have started paying attention to it. And the great thing, now, going back to what Suzanne shared earlier, when you start paying attention to it, what's the first thing your brain will be tempted to do? Well, of course you do that because you're not good enough. Because that's how you always do things, because you don't know what to do. And da 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 da. No, 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 no. Wow. Curiosity, awareness. Look at that. I do that. Great. What a great lesson I just learned. So, what can I get out of that? What can pull me towards me becoming based on the knowledge that I just found out? Do you guys feel the vibration of how the two feel? Away towards, right? We always want to be kind and gentle and loving with ourselves. Always. That always rules. Yes. Desire and purpose. Probably since the age I was 20, I have especially one friend who, when I resigned, she understood because she went like, wow, you have been talking about this for 20 years and you finally did it. I told her, one day I'm going to have my own fitness studio. One day, one day, maybe when I retire, one day when I don't know, have kids and they grow up, one day, like somewhere there. I've always had desire and movement has always been a big part of me. I grew up in a family of academia. And even though I was really good at sports, my coach, my swimming coach in first grade, she was Russian. She would tell me, Mashenka, she called me Mashenka. She's like, Mashenka, we will train you for the Olympics. I was a very good swimmer. And she would put me to compete with the boys because I was so good. Well, my parents were academia, and back then in Eastern Europe, the kids who went to sports schools were the kids who did not do well in school, who did not do well academically. Now, if you have two parents who are PhDs and very much into that world, there is absolutely no way you're going into sports school. And even today, when I talk to my mom, she says, not for a second did the mind cross my mind that you could be doing something with sports. She's like, I knew it. She's like, I knew you were, you liked sports, you were good at sports. But that's because it's where she was, right? In her journey and in her mindset. In order, she and my dad wanted the best for me. And that was like, I have to get a good education. I have to get a good grades. I have to get a good job. That's what she knew. And that's what she wanted for me, right? But I had that desire from a very young age. And I just kind of like pushed it to the side one day because I have to do what I'm told to do. And I did that for 39 years of my life. Every one of us is born with desire. Every one of you. You are not here to just take space and go through this experience of life and just like be like, okay, and I'm done. No, you're here with a desire, and that desire is part of you, and that desire is part of how you will contribute to the world and change the world. And it's real. And if you learn to trust your intuition, tap into your authenticity, stay true to who you are, and let that desire flourish, because most of us suppress our desires, your purpose will start unfolding in unimaginable ways. If 8 years ago, my entrepreneurship started with a classical Pilates studio teaching Pilates as fitness, right? It didn't start with mindset. It didn't start with any of that stuff. My purpose is, look at the class I'm teaching today, you guys. If 8 years ago you would tell me you will be supporting healthcare professions, I would be like, whatever. Like, no, nothing about that. Don't know what you're talking about. All of this is I am trusting my journey and stepping into my purpose. And at this point, my purpose is so much bigger than me. And it's getting me to do a lot of crazy and very uncomfortable things. But in these 8 years, I have created such a solid foundation for like, oh my gosh, this works. Just trust it and keep going. It's an amazing experience. So today I invite you to, like, if you have desires, don't discount them. Acknowledge them and follow through on them. Yes. Adriana is grabbing her computer charger. Do you guys need a break? How are we doing?
I could take a bio break.
You want to do
Yes.
that? Okay. Let's do 10 minutes, 9:30. Yeah.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'll do the same thing. Yes. Big part of this journey is you will have to learn to slow down to speed up. And that is, if you're a type A, which I was like, go, go, go. I mean, probably in past me would not have even had an introduction. We would have driven like right in, right? Because we don't want to waste any time. Being present and intentional and being like, okay, this is a journey. I'm not going to get there tomorrow. The more you slow down, the faster you will move. But that's that's so counterintuitive for most of us that I'll tell you a lot of my times class, Suzanne, you took my group class, right? I take a really long time for people to get grounded before class because I want them to be really present into their body before they start moving their arms and legs and being unintentional with how they move. And the feedback of a lot of new people is like, oh my God, that felt like half of the class. And that's okay. Because you know what? It's amazing how over time they totally embrace it. And that goes from, oh my gosh, I feel like I just wasted 30 minutes of my time to, I so appreciate you allowing me to return to the present and stay grounded. But it's a process, right? So where I think, Suzanne, it was one of your words was patience, right? In the beginning, when we set up the intentions.
Presence.
Patience.
Right, yes.
Presence and patience. For me, like patience has been a big one because I used to be like, okay, you got it. Let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go. And people will be like, oh, like, hold on, I don't even know what you're talking about. And I'm like, I've moved 3 steps ahead, right? And people were like, I can keep up, right? So, and
Yeah.
think about the vibe that we are creating. If I was like, okay, guys, slide number 3, let's go. You got it? Okay, slide number 4, let's go. It will be a totally different vibe versus I want you to be cozy and comfortable and open and calm so that you can absorb a lot of this. Can you see how the vibe I talk about vibration is different?
Maria, that reminds me too of when we were talking about this this class before, and I was like, does it have to be 4 hours? Can we condense that? You know, do you remember that? And you're like, yes, I'm actually going to keep it that way because, and had the rationale. But yeah, But
Yeah.
it's actually going by like so fast now that I'm here too. So
Mhm.
that's pretty interesting as well. But I can definitely relate to that. What's the bluff, the bottom line up front? I need to know that and I need to move and make a decision and go to the next thing. And yeah, so it's very, very different vibe. And of course, I did like a hit boot camp before this because I knew I needed to get my restlessness out for a minute. So yeah.
Okay. Um, I had a point and I forgot my point, but something that you said. Oh, so if you think about it, if we had 2 hours, we would be almost done for the day, right?
Yeah.
And we are on slide, I don't know, 10 out of 70.
Um,
So we have
yeah.
a
Yeah.
lot of stuff to cover, yes. Any other comments? Am I talking too much on the slides, or do you guys feel like the information shared is useful?
I'm trusting your process.
Okay. Thank you, Suzanne. Appreciate that.
I have one that I think I was thinking about it when you were talking about the playfulness and like the jokes, like you were talking about that in the split. I relate and identify with that a lot, where I was like, my wildness, my rebel got me into trouble. And so I tend to be like very professional, and which is great. You know, that's it all serves, you know, professionalism serves. You
Yes,
need it.
yes.
But the split was like required for that safety. And so I love that, like, it's been reflected back to me that I have a high level of awareness, but where I get tripped up is like what I just mentioned to you. I'm like, well, the wildness will get me into trouble, so therefore I can't take action. Like, I know, but like, where's the rewire? Maybe we'll get to that later in the presentation or something, but like the rewire with the action is kind of more like, it's great that I have all this awareness, but like, what's after the awareness?
And you know what? I can tell you that because you have to figure out what's the balance for you, right?
Yeah.
Your balance of wildness and professionalism. You know, I work with, again, people. I work with men. You know, I have to be mindful of my playfulness, right? Because it could be interpreted. But I manage to be very playful and professional. Does that make sense? To where people, like, I have never ever been disrespected by a man, ever. And I touch bodies, like I do stuff. Um, See, I'm actually not surprised because I think we have a room of rebels here. I don't think there is a surprise we're all here. Um, you have to find that balance for yourself, and where your balance is and where my balance is and Suzanne's and Sudi's could be in different places. You have to find that balance to yourself, but also be aware where that playfulness becomes a pattern to not move forward. Does that make sense? Becomes an excuse. Well, I'm too wild, therefore I can't show up. So I'm just not going to show up so that people don't see my wild side. Does that make sense, Adriana?
Yeah, so it's more about the like discernment of, you know, I mean, also just thinking what room you're in, what and who you're showing up for, and then kind of also in a way feeling it out. Like, I can't just have some staple like, this is how wild I'll be. Like, I can't have some sort of like preconceived or predetermined. Does that make sense? Like, I can't have like a predetermined, like, today it's going to be a 7 on the wild scale, you know, or a 2. It's like, no, it's like this ebbs and flows based off of the
It does
audience.
flow, but also what I would say, for example, the conference where I met Suzanne. I've been a speaker for 3 years now. And the first year, the organizer told me, he said, you're kind of like a wild card. He's like, I don't know, like, how well people would like you and what you talk about. He's like, he was very upfront. He was like, I'm kind of taking a chance on you. So, and when I asked him about the audience of what they want to hear, he said they're, medical professionals. They're very heavy based on research. So if you look at the evolution of my presentations from year 1 to year 3, you'll be like, the same person did that presentation, because my first presentation was like, links to research and like, this is a great research that shows why posture is great. It was very scientifically, so to say. The second year, I got to know some people, right? So I was like, I'm going to push just a little bit more. So I added stuff on mindset, and he told me, be careful, because these are physicians. They're like very much into the science. They're not open to stuff. So I just put a little bit. It was
He was
very well.
wrong.
Hmm?
He was wrong.
Yeah. So I pushed, and after I got off the stage after the second year, I had a physician come to me and he said, by far the best presentation of the entire conference. And I thought, oh, okay. So this time I was like, I mean, I can get kicked off, but I was like, I'm gonna go like all rebellious. And the reception, the feedback that I got from people were like, oh my gosh, thank you. Like, thank you for bringing this up. So, you know, you have to be mindful of where you are, right? Because if I go show up in a bikini on stage, it's probably not going to be very well received, right? At a medical conference. I will tell you, I got physicians to dance on stage this year, which, you know, Michael was like, Maria, he's like, please don't injure anybody. I was like, Michael, can you just like trust me? People loved it. And people came to me after that. They're like, I have never been to a conference where there has been dancing before. Because you know what? If you see the video of the people on stage, they were having a ball. They were smiling. They were like into the music. They were being themselves.
Shaking it up.
Yeah, versus being who they're supposed to be and how they're supposed to be seen. So I think people are really craving different. We have become so stuck. You know, one thing I pride myself here is I talk about politics, I talk about sex, I talk about the uncomfortable things with my clients, and they all come and they say, thank you for creating that space for me to share how I feel, right?
Mhm.
It's in a very respectful, empathetic, loving place. Because sometimes people are dealing with stuff and they don't have an outsource because they're going to start a conversation and it's going to start a fight. And they don't want to deal with that. They just want to be heard. And I provide that for them, and they love that.
Mm.
They love that they can come and be real and share
Goes a long way.
and show up as their real selves, because the rest of their time they're like, well, I have to fit in into what I do. Does that help, Adriana?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So let me go back to sharing our presentation. Okay. Let's go into everything we talked about. What does it require? It requires for you to believe in yourself. That is an absolute must. And it does require courage. That first conference that I told you about that I got on stage, I cried a bunch. I do wish I had a video of that because I'll absolutely share it so the world can see it. But I got on stage and I was like, I took that one scary step. I resigned my job. I'm like, why is life like not flourishing for me? And he's like, because now you have to keep taking those. Every next step is going to be like that. And I was like, well, I don't want to do that. He was like, well, then you're going to be where you are right now. And that was horrifying, knowing where I was at that point of time. So this is not going to be a journey where you take one step that's going to change your life. I mean, you might take one big step that makes a big dent onto your journey, but you will be constantly required to take those uncomfortable steps, okay? Because stepping outside of the box requires action. Action requires you to believe. And I'll tell you, I've had recently 2 people make comments that are like, I just don't know how you do it. Like, you are a weird breed. Like, things happen that would crush most people, and you just get up, dust it off, and keep moving forward. Why? Because I'm on that journey. I'm like, yep, I know what it requires. It requires me to recover. I know everything is happening for me. I know everything is working exactly as it should. And I'm just like flowing with it. I am surrendering and trusting and letting my intuition guide me. So my big question to you is, do you believe in yourself? And you have to make that happen. That is a requirement for the journey. You cannot go through this journey if you're not going to have that belief that the journaling prompt that you wrote for what you want is possible. You have to have firm belief that that is there for you. And I will tell you, it is there for you. Now you're on the journey that's helping you step into it. So believe that, know that. Know that the journey is a process. The more that you practice, the easier the journey becomes. Everything that is happening to you is moving you towards expansion and growth. Know that and let that lead you forward. Now, we talked about that earlier. You might be tempted to ask many different people, and it's okay to get other people's opinion. However, there is only one person who knows the right answer for you, and that is you. And it's great to have an advisory board. It's fantastic. The advisory board is not there to tell you what to do. It's a sounding board. Ultimately, you are the decision maker. Like I told you before, you have to be very careful who you seek advice from. Ask the critical question I ask myself is, does that person live the life that I want to live? And do they live the life the way I want to live my life, in fulfillment and purpose and thriving? Because what we have identified as success is, I have the title, I have the money, I have the house, I feel miserable and I have no life and I live into the away side, but that's success. To me, a truly successful person is one who thrives, who you can feel that higher vibration, who you can inspire to be like. That is who I choose to ask for advice. Know that people will be more than willing to tell you what to do and what not to do. Plenty of advice out there. Be careful. And we talked about that, internal versus external. You have to flip the switch and go from external, which is what we're conditioned and taught to do, to internal, going to your intuition, going to that inner voice, your inner voice. How is your body doing? When you make a decision, is your body shrinking or does it feel expansive? Like, oh, that feels good into my body, right? Because your body, remember, reflects your state of being. Are you into a away state or are you into forward state? One of the easiest things you can do, I do with new clients all the time, is I ask them to take a deep breath. And if I see this, take a deep breath, and their shoulders completely come up, that is a very shallow stress breathing. So you can always do that for yourself. Stay in front of the mirror, take a deep breath, and see if you're doing this. That's your body is very stressed, right? And that's a very easy gauge if you're not body aware for what your state of being is, because your state of being is providing you feedback all the time. The problem is, to what we just talked about, is we don't slow and seek the signs. We just want to go, 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 go. So we lose that connection with our inner self. Know that growth will challenge your understanding of life as you know it. And that's where, Sudhi, when you ask what's a good question to ask, to move from away to from, generally a great question is, what is the truth? And if you ask yourself that question consistently, you will start realizing that you've been conditioned, and as a society, we're very conditioned to accept a lot of things that are not true as the truth. Okay? Trust, huge one. So number one, trust yourself. Do you trust yourself? Great journaling prompt. Do you trust your inner voice, your intuition? We already talked a little bit about that. Do you trust into stepping into your authenticity despite the feedback that the world might give you? Most of us choose to trust others. It's easier. Well, they told me to do that. Gives away your personal responsibility, puts it on somebody else. As a journaling prompt, perhaps think of a recent choice that you make and think, did I trust myself? Or did I overrule that with a suggestion or advice that somebody else gave me? That goes, again, that's to increase our self-awareness. Trust a higher power. So whatever your beliefs are, whether that's God, whether that's universe, whether that's spirit, infinite energy, whatever your thing is, higher power. That will very much be required, especially when things are not going your way and you're going, I feel so lost. I feel so, I don't know what to do next. Trust that you will be taken care of. And I will put in here that sometimes that's easier, especially when it gets to stuff like diseases and, things that are really challenging to accept that are happening for us instead of to us. Trust life. To be honest with you, the trust a higher power and trust life, to me, they're almost analogous, because life, the higher being, the higher power, is about expansion and creativity and us stepping into our higher self. And then trusting others. Use your gut. Who can you trust? Who can you not trust? Keep in mind that you might be able to trust different people for different things, right? The people who you trust for business advice might be different than the people who you trust for like personal advice, even though the two tend to be correlated pretty significantly, right? But just be aware that the people who show up in your life, they show up to teach you a lesson. And sometimes they'll be in there for a season. Sometimes they'll be in there for a reason. Sometimes they will be in there for a lifetime, right? And I already mentioned that that's, to me, that's one of the hardest parts of growth, parting with people. But know that every person who shows up in your life is there to teach you something. So instead of going, well, why is he or she doing this to me? Ask yourself, what is this person teaching me? What is the lesson? Thank you for teaching me, for opening my eyes to the lesson. So again, away towards. Who are the teachers in your life? And again, life is about creation and expansion. And to me, even the weight of this word, create, expand, has such great, feeling and vibration to it. That first quote is something that stuck with me from many years ago. And it was, I have a little plaque, Susanna, I can show it to you, when I graduated high school. And my dad's boss gave me this little plank with like a little inscription. And that was one of the statements which back then really stuck with me. And it's like standing out even more today. And that is, leave the world a bit richer than you found it, right? Life is about continuous growth. It's not like you go through this process and you're here and you're like, yep, I'm done, no more growth. You're continuously allowing to be guided towards your purpose. And the more you're guided to your purpose, the more you grow, the more you expand, the more you step into who you're becoming. And self-realization, seeking and fulfilling your purpose. Remember, we talked about desire and purpose. That is what life is about. Life is not about staying inside the box. Life is not about listening to others. Life is about you stepping into the purpose you were brought in for on this world and in this lifetime. And then challenging the status quo and stepping into your personal power. That goes back to what we talked about, authenticity, right? Stepping into the gifts that you were given and developing those gifts and trusting those gifts. This is the big one, abundance versus scarcity. And a lot of times people think about that in the context of money, which yes, it absolutely applies, but it absolutely applies in other aspects of life, such as relationships, such as your career. To me, a big one is time. Well, okay, let's, this is a great example. Think about when you're busy, rush, actually kind of like what we talked about. That is a scarce mindset. I have to rush because I don't have enough time. Let's go. That is scarcity. And that is something like when I started realizing it, because that was my state of being. I was constantly rush, go. No intention, hamster wheel, go, repeat. I was like, oh my gosh. How different would life be if you're like, now again, you have to find the balance, right? Because we don't want to go on the other side, like, life is about being, right? Now again, no action, right? So you have to find that balance of where time is abundant. Rushing to get something done for a deadline, what does that create? That puts you on that left side of away versus toward. That shuts down to your creativity because now you have to get it done, like right now, right here. Versus, okay, so when you're working on things, give yourself enough time. And
okay, so can I give an example? Sorry to interrupt you. Is this okay time?
Uh-huh.
So I have this big idea I'm super excited about that I'm birthing. And one of the steps that's required is for me to meet with, or is for me to record a series of videos that can be used, that can be sold and used as a platform for me to get my education out to other doctors. And I have that scheduled for the last week in December. Because I feel panicked that someone else is going to come along and steal my idea. And I feel like I need to get it out there first so that nobody else takes it or does it instead of me. And I feel this scarcity of time. It's so not where I want to be, but I feel that kind of panicky feeling that I need to get it done. So I've scheduled it for the week while my mom and my aunt and my brother are all in town. And I've already told them I'm not going to be available. I have to work those 2 days. And I rescheduled for that week. There's probably a lot else there because I don't want to spend time with them, blah, blah, blah. But I've already scheduled it for that week, and I'm debating right now rescheduling because I originally had it scheduled for this coming week. And so I rescheduled it to the end of December. My debate right now is, do I reschedule it again for sometime in January when things feel less frenetic? Because right now I feel like this entire month is too much for me.
So you're already aware that there is too much on your plate.
Yeah.
Right now, look, can you see yourself in the camera?
Yeah.
What do you see?
Yeah.
Your
Tight.
body is totally giving you, can you guys see the shoulders came up, the feet came up? I'm ready for a
Yeah.
fight. Let's go. I'm going to record those videos,
Yeah.
right? How about, oh my gosh, I am so excited to create those videos. They're going to be absolutely phenomenal and game-changing. And I'm going to give myself plenty of space and time so that I can be creative and create the best videos out there. Now, what's one other thing that you mentioned there? Look on the slide. I'm afraid that somebody else is going to launch this before me, right? That is competition. Competition is scarcity. So, Suzanne, if somebody goes and takes that idea and launches the videos, which I know sounds petrifying right now because it's your baby and your idea, what if you go, okay, maybe I'm throwing options there. Maybe I can do the videos in a better way, in a different way that's going to be different than the way they launched them. Is the universe telling me that I should be doing something different instead of those videos? Do you see how that's different than I have to create these videos right now? I know I'm not going to have time because I'm going to be stressed with my family, but I just have to do it because what if somebody else does it? Can you see the difference? And again, what you should do, I don't know.
Part of it is because I feel like it took me so long to get to this place. Like you and I talked a couple weeks ago about this. Like I've been so stuck like for 5 years, just coasting on not doing anything. And this past month was when I finally said, okay, I'm making the appointments, just a discovery appointment. I'm not going to do anything but a discovery appointment. And so you held me accountable or I held myself accountable with your help for making those appointments, the discovery appointments. And now I feel like I have to get it done as soon as fast as possible.
And it's great that you're feeling that momentum of energy of like, okay, now I'm ready to take action, right?
It doesn't feel like momentum. It feels
Feels
a
like
little
chaos.
momentum. Mostly it feels like fear.
Okay, yes.
Mostly it feels like scarcity.
Yes. What is fear? Now you're birthing something in a state of fear, in a state of sympathetic nervous system.
Yeah.
Awareness, great. So let me ask you something else. Is there something else that you can do for your schedule and record that before your family comes in town?
No, because I'm going out of town next week for 3 days out of the week. So I'll be gone a very long time for the practice, to be gone from the practice.
Mm-hmm.
And so in order to be present for my patients who need me to be present for visits, office visits, I need to respect that, whatever. And so I'm taking the week of Christmas to Thanksgiving off, which I've never done. And then I'm taking 5 days off around next weekend to go to A4M. And so I don't feel like I have the margin to do anything else.
Okay. So, and we're going to talk a lot about this because time management is a huge one, you guys, part of this. But you have great awareness right now that you're in a state of scarcity and you're birthing something from a state of scarcity in terms of time, in terms of opportunities, right? In terms of competition. I'm just going to tell you that what you're going to produce will have a very different energetic level when you produce from that. You're just going to get it done basically because you have to get it done.
What's fascinating is that's true for birthing babies too, like all the research that's out about moms who are in a state of stress when they're born, the baby they produce ends up having like diabetes when they're in their 50s. It's more common when the mom was in a stress state when she was producing. That's interesting.
See, so that's a great analogy.
Yeah, and I'm not afraid of doing the videos. That's not what I'm afraid of. Like that would be easy for me. What I'm afraid of is not getting it done before somebody else. I'm afraid of hurting the feelings of the guy with whom I scheduled. I'm afraid of him thinking about me that I'm irresponsible, that I've changed my plans. This will be the second time I've changed the schedule. He had to make other arrangements to fit me in on those 2 days. And so I feel bad about that. Like,
Okay. So let me ask you a couple of questions. Were you aware that you're short on time when you made that commitment to him?
yes,
Why did you do
because I have to get it done.
it? These are the type of things we have to rewire, right? Now, look what's driving you. You're worried about what somebody else is going to think about you, right? So you're going to put all of that stress upon you because what is the guy going to think? Okay, I mean, granted, you're the one who committed, so you now potentially might have to change that date again. There is a chance he might say, you know what, I'm done with you. I don't want to work with you. Okay, okay, that's the universe saying, maybe there's another company who I can do that with. Do you see how I'm using this to talk myself out of this, like, oh my gosh, I'm irresponsible and I'm not going to deliver what I said I'm going to deliver. And 2 weeks is going to make a difference between somebody else launching this and me. Is that the truth, Suzanne?
No,
Is this guy going to make money from you producing these videos?
100%.
Do you think he's incentivized from seeing you succeed?
Absolutely.
Do you think you can look at it that way?
Yeah.
Do you think he wants to see you produce high quality content?
Mm-hmm.
So what if you have a conversation with him? Again, you know what to do and say, listen, I'm really excited to do this project. I want to do it and I want to pour into it with my creativity and giving it all my best. And I'm realizing that I'm doing you and me not the best favor by rushing into this and just putting a check mark next to it.
Mm-hmm.
You think he'll be more open and understanding?
Mm-hmm.
Do you guys see what I'm doing?
Mm-hmm.
Can you see how the different and the vibration is different? Of like, hey, Suzanne, I told you I'm going to do that, but I'm not going to do that. So just give me a week, right? And I'm like, what the hell? She already asked for a week, right? Or I asked for a week, right? What if you're open with that? But again, how he's going to take it, you have zero control over that, right? There is a chance he might say, I'm done with you. There is also a chance for him to say, you know what? I believe in you. I think this is a great collaboration. I'm willing to wait, right?
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying push it to the end of 2025, but
Yeah, I'm thinking January.
so now, and you'll see, interestingly, you'll see what the homework for next week is. But next week's homework will be to look at your calendar because we have to take control of our calendars. See, the problem is that we try to create and birth into the like rush of life. I don't have any time to begin with, but I'm going to squeeze 10 more things into it. You have to be intentional into creating space and time.
So here's what's also happening is I have created time for meditation, like a regular practice of journaling and meditation. And I see that getting stolen because I'm working on these things. And those things have been so important in my growth and in my like forward movement. And I'm afraid I'm going to lose them because they haven't been solidified in my life yet, right? Like I'm still willing to give them up easily. And so, yeah, I probably need some calendar work. Thanks for that.
Yeah.
prompt.
And look at the word that you chose to use, right? I'm going to lose them, right? What is that? That goes right back to this,
Scarcity. Yeah.
right? So when you're thinking about creating, and again, you'll see that it's coming up in the slides, how you manage your calendar. We want to create and birth stuff while we don't change anything in our calendar. And then we just put a check mark into it. Intention is a huge part. Focus is a good part, is a big part of it. Instead of just, let me just do it because I need to do the 500 other things. Something's got to give. If you're really going to be intentional about launching this program, something's got to give. Or you can produce a half-ass something that's just there and then never put the energy into it. And then, okay, then it's just going to be there. And so do you want to, the energy that you put into it is the energy that's going to come back. So is this going to be a checkmark project that you're going to just throw out there and it's just going to be there? Or are you really going to love on that baby and like produce it and love it and, so that like when it goes out there, it's like, oh man, I'm like so proud of what I created.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of food for thought. This is exactly, do you guys see how we're using everything we're talking about into real life? Because that's where the game changer is, right? It's not going through this 4 hours presentation. It's how we take all of that and apply it in life. So as you're going, so Suzanne, now you have some homework questions. You have some questions to ask yourself of how would I do this differently now that I'm aware that I'm in sympathetic nervous system away, scarcity about time, opportunities, fears of how others are. Do you see how many things are going into that? Are any of them true?
No.
Do you see how you're convinced that they're true? And that's what we do. We all do it in different aspects, right? Different scenarios. Awareness, step number 1. 2, now you have to get honest with yourself, decide what you want to do, communicate with the person and so forth, right?
Yeah.
And this is another big thing I'll tell you guys. Now you're going to realize like, oh, fuck, I did all of this. Now I have to unwind it so that I can create the space. And right that and there is going to overwhelm you, right? Because you're going to be like, oh my gosh, before I can proceed forward, I have to get myself out of this. Yes. And that's going to require you to slow down, which is absolutely counterintuitive to what you know. Because right now you're going, I need to speed up, not slow down. And here's Maria telling me I need to meditate and journal, where I'm like, I already don't have time.
Yep.
Right? And you have to take a deep breath and trust and start doing life differently and focus, right? Remember, overwhelm, focus, how they were the two opposite. Helpful?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Helpful, Sudhi, Adriana?
Yeah, I'm taking a lot of like notes, like everything that you were sharing, Suzanne. Like I was just thinking about how that shows up for me of like this either or, like you were saying you have to give up. Like what if I have to give up journaling to or meditation, like these habits that you're forming. To me, it's like this idea that like I want to do it all. I mean, I'm sure you all can relate. And I'm like, I don't want to say no. So when you're talking about the time management and the calendar, like I'm like, I don't want to say no to that project. So I'm really now having to be like, well, what do I want the most? And what's the one thing, right? And so as you were saying that, I was like, yeah, I definitely relate with this like this fear of losing. Like I have it right now. So in order to make this leap, I've been lucky and fortunate enough to be at my mom's rent free. And I want to move out very badly, but I'm like, it's like this either or, right? I can either stay here and save money, or I can move. Like I have that in a different way. It shows up differently for me, but everything you were saying, I was like, okay, like I see how this is showing up in my life, and it sometimes for me it can feel like I can't get out of that pattern. Like the patterns are the Chinese finger trap, and I'm like, how do I how do I get myself out of this one? So I bet you the time, whatever the homework is probably going to be very fruitful in terms of the time management and kind of choosing what to do going forward.
I love it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yes.
This shows up for every one of us. And, I've shared this with Suzanne. Sometimes I do group mindsets, which like invites everybody. And you have like a stay-home mom with a C-level person. And sometimes they're like, well, I don't want to be in the same room. Those people can't understand me. It's like, it doesn't matter who you are. These things show up for every one of us in a different scenario. So when, one person is sharing, the other ones are like, oh, I've never heard of that before. Everyone's like, oh my gosh, I do the same thing, right? And then by sharing, and maybe by the time we do homework, one of you is going to share somebody's like, oh, what a brilliant idea. I didn't think about that, right? And I'll show you guys some of the ways that I'm doing things. It doesn't mean that's the right way, right? Because, oh, that's how she's doing it and she's already doing that, so that's the right way. No, no, no. I'm going to show you an example of what works for me. You have to figure out what works for you. I'm just going to give you some examples, the things that work for me, right? So we're learning from each other. I'm learning from you guys, right? It's like I'm learning from the questions that are being asked. It's it's a fascinating journey. This one, you guys, abundance and scarcity. This is going to show up again in every area of your life. So just be mindful. Are you in a state of scarcity, low vibration, or are you in a state of abundance? Yes. Okay. Huge, huge, huge one. Your personal growth and state of life is directly correlated to the amount of personal responsibility you are willing to take for your life. It is so much easier. I will tell you guys, I'll be honest, probably the first 6 months of my business were blamed upon my husband because he was not supportive and he didn't want to hear it and he didn't believe in me. And the truth is, I was horrified of sales and I was horrified of putting myself out there. But it was so much easier to say, well, it's his fault. He doesn't support me. And I'm just going to sit here and sulk because he is not supporting me. That's like 6 months wasted. And when we step and look, like we just talked in Suzanne's example, right? Taking personal responsibility of kind of like the mess I created, right? Okay, you know what? I'm learning from it, right? I told Suzanne, I launched this class because now I'm all about action. So the idea came in like September. I told my marketing team to create the landing page right before the concierge medicine, right? I had a month to reach out to people and tell about it. At the same time, I launched the retreat. At the same time, I had speaking engagement and I was like, oh, what did I just do? I overdid it because I was so excited, right? Okay, lesson learned. Don't launch two big initiatives at the same time. Yes. Have I done it before? Yes. Am I learning more? Yes. I'm going to do better next time? Yes. Am I loving that I'm starting this? Absolutely. I'm so excited you guys are here, right? Could I have launched it maybe in January? Yes. But we're here and I'm so excited about the content. And I'm so excited that going into January, you guys are going to have momentum, right? Which was my intent. Let's get them this, let's do the fire hose stuff in December so that going January, they can start the new year with momentum. We're continuously growing. And you know what? It's our mess. Embrace it, and love the mess that you're creating. It's your life. Instead of like beating yourself over it. What the fuck did I? Oh my gosh. Here I did it again. Oops, I did it again. I like songs. Yeah. Embrace it. It's your mess. It's your mess of growth. Embrace it, love it, and deal with it. With fun and being playful and staying high vibrational and taking care of yourself and enjoy it. Life is to be enjoyed. Where you are now is to be enjoyed. We so want to live life when we get to launching the course, to selling this out, to doing that, to having the client. What about today? Like, isn't your life phenomenal today? Are there things you can be grateful for today? Focus on that. Stay into the moment. Stay present. The rest is coming. Can you not feel it? Can you not feel like your blood rushing? I have goosebumps right now. It's coming. Embrace it. Enjoy it. If you're on that constant rush to the next big thing, you never ever enjoy anything of your life. You never ever be present and grounded. Enjoy the experience of the long introduction, right? Enjoy the experience of taking the time to go through the slides and really talk through these examples, because that's where we grow, that's where we expand. But personal responsibility, you guys, if you ever catch yourself, well, it's his fault, it's her fault, it's this fault, right? Go back to yourself. Where did I not take personal? Again, don't beat on yourself. Kindness and love to yourself. This one is a favorite, you guys. Your tribe will make you or break you. And I say that with a lot of seriousness, like I really mean it. Who is around you will make you or break you. You have probably heard the saying that you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So today, a journaling prompt or something to ponder on is, who are those people in your life? Who are the 5 people in your life that you spend the most time with? Now, some people, such as family, right? We have fewer choices with them. So perhaps you can choose to, set up better boundaries or spend less time. Again, be very careful who you ask for advice on different things that you're going through. Remember that when people give you feedback and it feels like they don't believe in you, that is not the case. That's your perception of what is happening. It's simply their fear that is now spilling over. So that is their deal. You let them deal with their deal. Remember, you do you, and they do themselves. Sometimes that's going to be easier than others, but it's okay. You can do it. Create your tribe. Create your tribe of like-minded, growth-oriented people who live the life that you want, who show up in life the way that you want. That's going to be a big one. Be very aware of people with low vibes. Boundaries, we're going to talk about boundaries, is a big one. You have to learn to say no. Know that you don't have to explain yourself. No is a full sentence. And taking inventory of everyone around you, the people at work, sometimes people do this and they're like, oh my gosh, I can't be at the job where I am. It's like, okay, that's a great realization. Now what? Now what's the next step, right? I'm too old. I've been in this job for a really long time. I don't know that I can find another job. What's that? Scarcity. There are not enough opportunities, right? So be mindful of the language that's going into your head when it gets to things like that. But you will definitely start as you go on this path. You will know it. Just know it's coming, yes? Okay. Going into relationships. What kind of relationships do you want? And to me, that's not only like romantic relationships, but that's again, friendships, colleagues, the way Suzanne gave us an example of how she shows up for her patients with a hug and a really long hug with a full breath. Like, actually, Suzanne, that's really interesting because that goes against of the way you said you don't like the introductions. Now, which one feels better? Does that hug? I know you give me hugs every time you come here, and I love those hugs. I look forward to them because it's a sincere, heartfelt hug. But in that moment, you're slowed down. You're not rushing through the hug.
Mm-hmm.
You're present and intentional in the hug. And how is the vibration of that hug different?
Yeah, totally.
Right?
Yep.
And so that's actually a great awareness point for you. Why is it okay to slow down and experience that hug and be intentional, but it's not okay to slow down in X, whatever that X is, right? So we are seeking those connections that are heartfelt, genuine, loving, supportive, authentic. I'll tell you something I have started doing, and I literally do it. I get with people on like one-on-one networking calls, and they're get to know calls. Yes, I mean, if we can work together, that is fantastic, but I want to get to know you as a person. And I tell them, I want to know your darkest secrets. And I started doing this as a trial. And you know what happens? People pour right in. And the first time I did it was actually with a physician, and he started telling me about his depression and he's dealing with anxiety. I didn't ask any of that. And I was like, wow. People were so hungry for authentic, real, profound relationships versus what has become a lot of today, superficial. How are you doing? Fine. Okay, good to see you. Bye, right? If you're going to spend 5 minutes with somebody, really give yourself the time, right? Instead of, you know what, I have 5 minutes, tell me. And sometimes that will happen, right? Depending on what is going on. But if you're having a heart connected conversation, give yourself the space to be truly present instead of rushing to the next thing that you have to do. Okay, failure. We talked about that. There are no failures. There are only lessons. So you can think about the past of things that you have labeled as failures in your life. And I guarantee you there is a lesson in every single one of them. And perhaps you got the lesson and perhaps you didn't. So if you have something recent that has happened, we don't want to get stuck again. Getting stuck on overanalyzing. Overanalysis causes paralysis, right? We don't want to get stuck into that, but just know that everything that has not gone the way that you have expected it to go has gone that way for a reason, and there is a lesson and an opportunity, abundance in there for you. Lessons support your growth, they support your evolution, and they're simply feedback. So the meaning that you assign to them goes a long way. Is it an away or is it toward? When something doesn't go the way that you want it to go, ask yourself, where is the opportunity? Instead of what we traditionally do, start talking down on yourself. Pause, rewire, ask the question. And again, we talked about that. Most people quit when there is a failure. I already told you my business is what it is today because of things not going my way. And that's a journaling prompt. What's the lesson in perceived failure? Very importantly, ask yourself, not others. It's your lesson. It's not my lesson. It's not somebody else's lesson. It's your lesson. Where is the lesson in that for me? And this is a big one. Everything is happening for you, not to you. When you can embrace that, life takes a totally different, we put those pink glasses on. Once again, sometimes easier than others because sometimes things happen that we see as big adversities. How can you see it as there is opportunity, there is a lesson, there is something happening in there? I don't know if any of you are aware of the work of Louise Hay and Christian Bierland. I use their books a lot into my teaching and coaching, but they both talk about the implication of emotions in the context of disease. So remember, our body is a reflection of our state of being. So when there is disease, which I think is I personally think is one of the hardest places to believe that something is happening for you, is there is likely an emotion that is not addressed. And getting to the bottom of that emotion, it's a lot of, I call it stinky work, right? You have to get down to emotions which might not be that high vibrational. And we're going to do a little exercise of how to release those emotions and allow them to clear and reset the body. But this is very, very powerful, profound work. And if you can, when you master it, you're going to feel that vibrational change in your body, in how you feel, in how you experience life. And just know your body on this one is constantly providing you feedback if you slow down and ask. And one of the biggest questions I ask, I teach my clients is, ask yourself, how am I feeling? Like literally tap into yourself first thing in the morning, last thing in the evening, during the day. How am I doing? Get a gauge, reset. If you're stressed, take that breath. See if your shoulders are coming up. Reset. Go to high vibrations. Go into a toward state. You want that toward state to become like your new normal. Okay, let's talk about the distractors. Ta-da! We all know probably a variation of one of them that is our go-to. And I don't think you'll be surprised by any of the external ones, the TV, the social media, addictions, alcohol, drugs, shopping, sex, any of those people, irrelevant activities. I'll tell you guys a funny one. When there is something that I don't want to do, I start arranging or cleaning. That's my thing. And I've become so aware of it that it literally drives me crazy. I'll start arranging my desk and I'm like, oh my God, here we go again. Like I'm avoiding doing something, right? So become aware of the patterns. Sometimes they're really silly that you do to avoid taking the action, right? Because that's like my way of avoiding doing something that I don't want to do. Most of the external distractors are no. Some of the internals are interesting because we don't think about them as distractions. And which is why I'll tell you on the internal side, which is why a daily self-care routine and intention is so, so, so important. And what's one of the first things that we want to give away when we get busy? It's exactly that, the meditation, the journaling, the movement, the things that keep us calm and collected and present. And that, I will tell you, one thing for me is when I get busy and start getting lost, I try to get away from my self-care, which I know at this point is absolutely critical. And I mean critical like daily, not like do it once a week, but absolutely daily. And now, even if I need to shorten it, it's there. It could be 10 minutes, but it's there. It has to be intentional. But some of the other ones are fear. Fatigue, I'm tired. Well, that is why the basic pillars of health are critical as we go through this journey. You have to sleep enough. That's not a non-negotiable. That's not a question. That is a must. You have to be well rested because guess what? You're not going to have the focus. You're not going to have the concentration. And your excuse will be, well, I'm too tired today, so I don't want to do it. The negative self-talk, we've already talked about that. We have to learn to rewire what we say to ourselves into our head, right? The cluttered mind, the go, 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 rush, 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 doing 10 things at the same time. That does not allow us to focus. How do we calm down? By being present, by slowing down. And then pain, going back to the body. Pain can turn into a distraction. So when I told you when there is pain, when there is disease, of course we want to address that. But that also becomes a distraction of, okay, now I have this pain and I'm going to focus so much on my pain. What happens when we're in pain? Have you guys ever had something hurt and all you can focus is like, this thing hurts and I can't do anything else because that hurts? That becomes a coping mechanism. Again, this is the balance, right? It's not ignore the pain, but it's not get so stuck to the pain now that the pain becomes your excuse for not doing what you want to do. So, and some of the external ones, they're there because it is so much easier. Do you do that, or do you know of people who say, I watch TV every day because it allows me to unwind? TV allows them to take real life away, right? Because now they're watching a show. And those same people would say, I don't have time for self-care. So you have time to watch TV, but you don't have time for self-care, right? That's a choice. And that is the way we have taught ourselves to trick ourselves, right? Because the internal work is not always pretty. Sometimes we have to face things, we have to recognize things that we have to work through. And it's like, oh, I would rather just watch TV. So again, awareness. And think about this is a good question. What are your distractors? What are your external distractors? What are your internal distractors? What are the things that you use to not take the uncomfortable action? Self-sabotaging pattern. That to me, those kind of go like hand in hand. But just look through that list and see which one of these can you relate to. And again, I will call myself out and I will go 8 years ago and I'll tell you, I can't. Yep. I know. Yep. Because I'm highly educated and I have the success from before. Busy, master, control. Yep. I used to be a big time control freak. Excuses. Yep. Because it's my husband's fault. Remember, it's not mine. Perfectionism. Absolutely. If it's not done perfectly, I'm just not going to do it. Procrastination. Well, I don't feel great today, so it just has to wait. Well, it doesn't work. Therefore, I'm not going to do it. Very interesting one. The fear of success is something that showed up for me a couple of years ago. And it was the reason I was afraid to move forward was it went back to people. Who are the people who are not going to be in my life when I move to the next step? And that's a big one. The lack of self-care, I already mentioned that. The negative self-talk, already mentioned it. The imposter syndrome, right? I don't know if I can do that. I don't know if I know everything that I need to know about, creating that program and creating those videos or making my first offer to my clients. Not asking for help. That's a big one for me because I grew up being taught that you don't ask for help. You figure out you resolve your own problems. You don't share them with others. And for me to ask for any help was like, oh my gosh, I have to be vulnerable and open myself and tell people I don't know everything. And now, I work with people who have medical conditions. I rely on my medical people, and I'll send a text and be like, hey, what can you tell me about that? Like, teach me. I'm not a physician, right? But how can I learn the most so that I can show up the best for my clients? Mindset. I have a tribe of people who I'm like, "Oh, I feel stuck. Can you talk through me through that?" But I'm open and I'm showing myself as like, I don't know it all. I don't. I'm still on my growth journey. There is still a lot of learning taking place, but that's not allowing me to stay stuck into a position because I'm like, okay, let's embrace the journey. Let's move forward. And then another big one that's like literally like us is worrying what others think, right? What is the guy going to think when I tell him I need to move my deadline again because blah, 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 right? So when you catch yourself into any of those, and you can journal about that, is catch and interrupt. So you're about to do something, you know you need to do something, and now you're like, oh, suddenly you got really busy. Look at that. And then you try to do something else and you're like, I just got really busy again. And you know, busy is a dangerous one, because busy, when we're busy into our schedule, it's great to say, well, I really don't have time, which is how I'll show you how I got to my calendar, because I was constantly busy and I constantly didn't have time to do the things that I was supposed to do, which were uncomfortable. So big one, observe. How do you self-sabotage yourself? Awareness. And how can you interrupt? Rather, how do you rewire? What's the answer? Action. You take action. You know what? I don't know how I'm going to do this. I have some doubts. That's okay. I embrace them because I am growing and I'm birthing this program, which I've never birthed before. So it is absolutely normal that I feel this way, and I'm going to do it anyways. And it's going to be fabulous and amazing. And I'm just going to take the action and launch it. Take the action. The battlefield. You will likely start feeling a little bit crazy. Your head, especially, to me, growth is a little bit like that. It's like now you're hearing this information, especially if it's the first time you're like kind of hearing it, but not really. And you kind of cruise. And then one day you're like, oh, it hits you. And then you make a big step up. And when you're about to make that big step, or when you're taking that big step, that's when the noises in your head will get really loud, because now your mind is going, oh my gosh, all the alarms are going on, right? She's stepping outside the comfort zone. Hold on, turbulence is coming. And that is where the self-care, the intention, the focus, being aware of your state of being becomes super, super important. Because guess what? It's a battlefield. So there are two options for who is going to win. It's going to be the voices and the conditioning of your head, or it's going to be your intuition, your courage, your belief into where you're going. Where do most people choose to go? Right here, away, right? Instead of towards. So just know that you're not going crazy. You might talk to yourself. I talk to myself out loud. That is okay. Have those conversations. Don't ignore them, right? Because the more you ignore them, the louder they're going to get. Acknowledge them, work through them, and release them because they no longer serve you. Learning to silence your mind, super, super, super important, because that is when we are rushed, when we are stressed, when we are into a state of sympathetic away, that is where those noises become louder. Our intuition, it thrives into that toward, quiet, peaceful, present, intentional state. So that is why the importance of towards versus away. Your body, already mentioned, is communicating to you constantly. Remember, your body is your emotions. So when we feel a low vibrational emotion, you may have not ever thought about this, but if you start paying attention, you will see the signs. You might feel this. What happens if I were about to punch you? Think about it. If I were to do this to you, you'd automatically do this, right? Because that's your body's automatic way of protection. I am protecting myself because I'm about to get hurt. That is exactly what happens with things that we perceive as threats, right? A threat is coming, so I need to protect. Very important to learn to tune into your body. That question that I mentioned, how am I feeling today? How am I feeling right now? How are you feeling right now? Take a breath. Now, if you're not into the habit of doing this, in the beginning, this might feel like the biggest waste of time. I can tell you how I talk to busy people and I tell them down, take a breath. Or, my favorite is people when they start meditating, they start doing this tapping on the surface and they start looking around like, when are we going to be done with this? I don't have time for this, right? Because that's their brain fighting them of like, you have so many things to do. What are you doing right now? Let's go. We don't have time for this, right? Can you relate to that? That was so me. The first time my meditations were probably like 3 seconds. It was like, oh my gosh, there's no way I can silence this. It's just like booming. All sorts of thoughts are going through. It's absolute chaos. So it's learning those skills, learning to tune in. And ask your body, what are you telling me? What is the message for me? Your body has messages. Learn to tune in. That goes right hand in hand with your intuition. The more you tune into that, the more you're going to tap into your intuition, the more you're going to step into your authenticity, the more empowered you're going to feel. All habits that we want to create. Very importantly, as you go on your growth journey, it is not surprising to start experiencing aches and pains into your body. Why? Because there are things into your body that you have to clear through. That's your body telling you, hey, there is something that you have not addressed. To step into the next level of who you are, we have to work through this and clear this. So don't freak out if that's happening. Again, where is the opportunity? Where is the message? How can I address, release, and move forward? Yes. What do we do usually when we have aches and pains? We plop some cream. We don't have time to deal with that because I have a very busy schedule. So let's just keep moving forward. We're going to change that to intentionally being present. Okay, this is a huge one. Assigning meaning. Assigning meaning is part of our conditioning. When we're kids and when our subconscious starts forming, we start assigning meaning to things. So I'm going to go back to, I see somebody dancing on the bar. What is the meaning I assign to that, right? That is your meaning. And even now, as I'm speaking through this presentation, every one of you is assigning meaning that might be completely different to what I'm saying, to the words that I'm saying, because certain words might mean different things to another person.
When you were talking before, Adriana, you were holding your head like this while I was sharing my story. And I was like, she's so annoyed with me for interrupting. She's so annoyed with this taking too long.
Not at all. I've been so happy to hear everybody's stories. I'm like, wow. But thank you for sharing that.
So what happened? Suzanne was doing what? She was assigning meaning to somebody else when Adriana went right after her and she said, I can so relate to what you're saying. So she's like, oh my gosh, that is so me, right?
That was probably me being like, oh man, like
Right?
she's speaking right to my to my like thing. Yeah.
Right? But Suzanne now is overanalyzing. Her mind is going, oh my gosh, you're so annoying. Just shut up. Nobody wants to hear what you have to say, right?
But you know what I said? I heard that voice and I said, you have no idea what she's thinking. That's her thoughts are not your problem. You take up space.
Nice.
Yes. And that's how we rewire, right? Because those thoughts, they will inevitably come. And that's where we have to be aware of them. That's where we have to know how to tune them out. They will be there. I'm telling you, it's going to be, they still come to me. It's just, I'm able to rewire faster, right? So what we want to do is like our life is like this. We're reactive, right? Something happens, we react. So all of this, what it's going to do is not, we're human, right? We're going to experience this stuff, but the journey is going to be more like this instead of like a turbulent roller coaster that we're up and down, up and down.
I like being able to say the phrase, and I learned this from Brene Brown, but the story I'm telling myself. So I can say, like I would say to you, Adriana, if it was just you and I speaking and you did this, I would say, okay, the story I'm telling myself is that you're really annoyed with how much time I'm taking. And then you would be able to address the story. That's really hard though, because that requires me to be vulnerable and say, here's my heart, step on it. Yeah.
Now, the scary part there, Suzanne, is that you might tell that to Adriana and she might go, you're absolutely right.
Yep.
You're being a wimp right now and I don't want to hear it.
Yep.
Now, what are you going to do with that?
I'm going to go, okay, I needed to talk about it and I paid as much as you did to be here.
Yeah. And that's her story and that's your story. So which one is right?
Neither one, both.
Both. It's right story for you. It's right story for her. You have no control over Adriana's story. She has no control over your story. Right? But what do we do? If most of us, if we hear that, oh gosh, they just told me, right? And you just open your heart looking for like support. And she literally took it and crushed it. Which is, remember what I told you, be very careful who you ask for feedback. Right? So if you were in a space, let's say this was a corporate meeting, right? And you're going on and on and on and on. And somebody, you might see somebody like doing like, right? Like, oh my gosh, just shut up. Like, perhaps it's not the right place to ask in the meeting, but perhaps you can address that with the manager after, right? In a safe space where you're not going to be just crushed and it's going to close you off to never ever ask a question again, right? But the meaning that we all assign are different. And I'll tell you, this is huge, you guys. When you learn that different people assign their meanings because of how they grew up, the culture they grow up, the religion they grew up in, the family they grow up, the traditions that they grow up, you will be able to have such an open heart, such empathy, humility, and understanding for every single human being you speak to. And it is the coolest thing when you can show up to anybody with love and patience and openness. It is such a transformation. I will call myself out. I used to be very judgy. And I used to be very kind of like ugly and in your face. And now to have this ability to see people as the human that they are and support them on their journey and understand them. When you really can't relate to a person for whatever reason, their religion, their political, beliefs or whatever it is, all of these things that we bicker about now, right? Well, if you're this, I can have a conversation with you about, learn about that person. Because when you learn their story, you will see where their thinking is coming from versus, well, she's an idiot to believe that. No, she just has a different story. So learn where that story is coming from. And then instead of putting judgment, because who is the judgment on? The judgment is actually on us, right? I just put my belief system on that person. This is a huge one. And this is when we can learn about this and really step it and practice it. You will see diversity and inclusion and embracing and being kind and loving to people at a whole other different level rather than just the concept. Know that everybody assigns meaning based on whatever they've got going on. And keep that in perspective. One, when you're assigning meaning. And then two, when somebody comes to you and says something that you're like, what? Right? It has to do with their story. It has to do with their database. This is a big, big, big one. All of them are big ones. Choices. Our life is the result of our choices, whether those choices are conscious or on subconscious. So this is where the magic of this comes, because now you are empowered to become aware of your subconscious. So instead of going on autopilot, the way that 99% of the population goes, you have that self-awareness to say, I have a choice into how I react to this or respond to it or to the action that I take, instead of just going through the motion, what I call the hamster wheel, right? We're just going auto repeat, auto repeat, auto repeat. We don't pause and ask. We don't pause and reflect. We don't pause and interrupt. We're just a bunch of reactive humans out there, just going through the motion. No intent, just going, going, going. So think about all the choices that you're making today. What's in your cup? Is it coffee? Is it tea? Is it water? You made a choice of the environment that you chose. And maybe you're like, oh, I love where I am. Or maybe you're like, I probably should have said somewhere else. You made a lot of choice. You made a choice to sign up for this class, right? These are all choices that we make. Some of them are small, some of them are big, but all of them collectively produce the results. And remember what the results are? Ultimately fed by beliefs. So we want to know what those beliefs are that are leading to those choices and then to those actions so that we can produce different results. The comfort zone, best way to say it, is a trap. And how many of us are conditioned to say, well, hold on to that job. Oh, well, I hate it. I don't like my colleagues. I don't feel like I'm growing. Well, you know what? It's a safe place to be. Is it really? Or can you just get laid off any day? That's a perception, right? Is it truth? No, it's not. But that's when you hear something enough, it becomes the truth. Well, everybody says the same thing, so therefore it's the truth. Remember that the only way to grow is to step outside the comfort zone, which is why most people don't do it, right? Because most people choose to stay into the comfort zone because it's uncomfortable, because it requires courage. It requires you to do something you have not done before. And once again, I will bring up people because people have a lot to do. How people's reactions are on what you do not allow that to hold you back. You do you, let them do themselves. Change is permanent. And if you embrace change, that everything is happening for you, and you choose to look at it, what is it leading me towards? You will never dread change again, because change is a great thing that's happening for you, and it's leading you to growth and expansion and creation. It is there to support you into stepping into your power. It's not there to mess up your life. But the way most of us see change is, I can't believe this happened to me, right? I can't believe that person said that to me. I can't believe I got laid off. Da 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 da. Huh? Okay. You know, what is that? What's in there for me? What is life leading me? What is life inviting me to step into? Different view. Same thing, different view. React and response. I already said it. One of the big questions I ask myself, Sudi, going back to what kind of questions do you ask yourself when something happens and I feel myself triggered? I ask myself, is this worth my energy? Should I go down the rabbit hole being upset about something or fired up about something? Or do I just let it go? Do I choose to let it go? And that's a very powerful question for me. I ask myself this all the time. Is this worth my time and my energy? Your time and your energy are two of the resources that are most precious for you, right along with your health. So that's something that you can get into the habit of asking. And another one, and this is a funny one, but I kid you not, most of my existing clients know it is when my husband does something. We've been married 25 years. I know, and sometimes it's the socks on the floor in the middle of the room. I just tell myself, Namaste, I love my husband. And that's my pause and reroute. Because when that happens every day, and it's like, how many times can I ask for this not to be there? An adult man who is almost 60 years old, right? I just have to remind myself that this is not a priority for him. And the socks, by the laundry basket do not bother him, they bother me. So I can choose. The old me would have gotten into a fight, which would have resulted in me stepping into it for a couple of days and not talking to him and all of that. And now I just say, is this really how I choose to? Oh, and then the other thing, very interesting. Now that would become an excuse for me to not do what I need to do because now I'm too upset at my husband's socks. You see how that's a pattern that I think it's serving me, but it really is not. And just think about those little things with people, especially, I'll tell you, family, we love them, but family are some of our best teachers, right? Because we are around them frequently, we get to hear them, the things that they say. As you start growing, you start recognizing the not truths that they're saying, and they believe them. And it's like, oh, wow, okay. So how can you learn and how do you choose to respond instead of react? Because this is really about you. This is about you protecting your energy and not being on that roller coaster, but choosing to cruise. All right, this is a big one. Boundaries, 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 boundaries. We must learn to set up boundaries because we are in time, you're in charge of your time and your energy. And you teach others how to treat you. So if you teach others that you're a yes, 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 if you teach others that you always do everything for them, that's not on them, that is on you. And if for many years in your life you have gotten others used to being that way because they always anticipate a yes, of course, from you, and now you start saying no, they will not love it. Yes. So just know that you don't have to provide long-winded explanations. You can if you want to, but be mindful when your explanation is like almost like, I'm so uncomfortable to do this, right? So let's take the conversation that I played out as an example, Suzanne having the conversation with the person who handles the program, right? She can say, no, I can't do this for December. I need to change the date again. Now she's already aware that she has already moved this up, and now she has a concern that he might be like, I'm done with you, right? So in this case, and again, Suzanne, you know what to do. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just using it as an example. It may be a good idea to say, can we please get on the phone? And then share with him, right? Now, two ways to view that, two meanings you can assign. One is I'm defending myself because I'm uncomfortable changing the date. Or two, different view, oops, that was not right, is I respect this relationship. It means to me a lot. I want to preserve it. And I want to explain to him why it is in both of our interests to move the date up. Do you guys see the difference?
Not to mention, I think the phone allows me to hear nuances versus text message, right? Like I can hear and see what he's doing and saying, and I can feel my body respond to that and listen to what it has to say. Because if I'm not getting back the response I feel like I deserve, then I can say, I don't think that this is the right, we're not a good match. So
Yes.
I can make that choice in addition to him making that choice.
Yes. And there, I would encourage you. Remember how we talked about ego versus intuition? Be mindful that your ego doesn't step in to defend you, because now he is not liking your choice.
Yes, which is fine. He cannot like it.
Yeah. So just putting it out there, just become aware how your response is ego versus heart. Right? And something else, Suzanne, you mentioned very important. Our communication, only 7% of our communication is the words we choose. The rest is body language and tonality, which is actually why I like to meet with people in person or do Zoom calls. Because even on the phone, yes, you can absolutely hear the change in their tonality, but you don't see their facial expressions, right? You didn't see that Adriana was doing this. Now, granted, you assigned it a meaning, which was not the, the meaning that she had behind it. But it is good to see what happens to people's eyes. Are they smiling? Are they angry, right? You can get all of that feedback based on watching how their body language is changing, right? When, I don't remember what we talked about, Suzanne, when you were like this, right? That's body language right there. Like, I'm ready to fight.
Yep. I just started dating again after getting divorced a year ago. And I always like my first date to be a video chat for that very reason, because I don't want, first, I don't want to waste my time meeting with you if it's not right, but I want to actually have the physical, I want to see your body move when you talk.
Yeah, right. I think that's a great idea.
I do the same thing, Suzanne. You're not alone. The video chat matters.
Yeah, that's a great idea. And that's an important thing to keep in mind, because sometimes I'm a big texter. I text a lot. And sometimes it's a good idea to ask yourself, is this better conveyed through text? Or is it better to have a conversation? Or is it better to meet in person, right? What is the best way to communicate on this? Because that makes a difference. Yeah. Anything else on this? Boundaries is huge, guys. You have to learn to set up the boundaries. Attachment. So actually, funny enough, Suzanne and I just talked about this. I think this week, was it this week, Suzanne? Or last week? Recently. If you ever feel disappointed of something not going the way that you want it to go, which, let's be honest, we all do, right? If I do this, I'm expecting that to happen. We feel disappointed. And that is an attachment to the outcome. Once again, remember, everything is working out exactly as it's meant to work out for you today. There is a lesson, there is an opportunity in everything that is happening. So, yes, acknowledge the disappointment, ask yourself again, self-awareness, where is my attachment? What did I attach to? And then move forward, embrace the lesson. One thing to be mindful of is in the context of relationships is very frequently, and you might do that too, is if I do this for Adriana, Adriana is going to do that for me. So then I do this for Adriana, but then she doesn't return back of what I expected. Now she has no concept of what I'm expecting. This is just something I made up in my head, right? If I do this for her, she's going to do that. So now I'm resentful and pissy at her because she didn't do something that she's not even aware that she's supposed to do, right? So just be mindful. And if you ever catch yourself doing that, like I'll support you so that you can support me back, or I'll give you so that you can give me, know that, because people are like, well, it's not fair. Okay. It's not that it's not going to come back to you, but it will come back to you through another way, through another person, through another opportunity, right? So remember how we talked about relationships where we want them to be deep and heartfelt and authentic and genuine. Be careful with creating manipulative relationships, right? Manipulation and influence, the difference between those two things is intent. Am I going to manipulate you into doing something which is a very different energy than am I going to influence you to do something because I really care and love you and I want to support you, right? And be mindful of you doing that. And of course, be mindful, you will feel the energy, the energy difference of manipulation versus influence. And one big one here is be aware of attachment to dysfunction. Because sometimes, depending on how we grew up, what our life is, so basically our brain produces chemicals, right? There are chemicals that go into the body, which is why we experience things the way we experience them. And those chemicals become addictive. So if we are producing chemicals based on dysfunction, let's say you're in a relationship that's really dysfunctional. And now you go into a relationship that's like, wow, I've never experienced that before. Part of your body is going, wait, like, where's the dysfunction? Where are the fights? Where are the disagreements? Whatever it is in the dysfunction, right? It's because we have been conditioned to be here instead of here. So something to be mindful about, because sometimes we get attached to things that are not serving us. And those are things it's time to let go of. And that's also part of awareness and growth and letting go. This one, forgiveness, is another big one, because frequently people see forgiveness as condoning the behavior, and that is not what forgiveness is. Forgiveness is letting go of the luggage that you're chugging behind you that is no longer serving you, and you just want to be right. And I don't think I mentioned this before, but one thing that you want to be conscious of is when you're fighting for your limitations. Sometimes I talk to people and they just want to be right. And sometimes when we just want to be right, we're fighting for things which are not serving us, because that's the ego thinking it's keeping us safe. So forgiveness does not mean you're condoning the behavior. It's not about the other person. It's really about you lightening up the load so that you can remember, where do I want to invest my energy? Do you want to invest in your energy into something that has happened in the past and let that continuously suck your energy out? Or do you choose to let that go and invest into your energy into creation and expansion and growth? So a couple of my favorite two tools are letters. One can be a letter telling the person exact all the details of how they hurt you, of everything you're experienced, like get down to it, cry your eyes out. You can always destroy it. And then the other one is a forgiveness letter. Really, because forgiveness is not like, I forgive you. Forgiveness is really thinking about what happened and not allowing and not feeling that emotional disturbance of what happened. That is when you know you have truly forgiven. If you say, I forgive you, but then you think about that and you still feel like that tightness and the anger into the body, you have not forgiven. You've just pretending to be forgiving, which is really not serving you in any shape or form. So writing those letters, many times people are afraid somebody is going to find them. So tear them up, burn them after that, if that's your concern. Interesting one. Sometimes people are like, can I give it to the person? You can. However, you may be attached to the outcome that you expect to come as a result of you giving them the letter, and the outcome might not be what you expect it to be. So you might really open yourself up and become comfortable, take personal, let's say it's a relationship, personal responsibility for what happened, and you expect that person to come from a really high vibrational state as well, but they don't have that capacity. And again, it's not, it's their story, it's their database. And now you don't get back what you expect. And now that pisses you off even more because, motherfucker, I just poured my heart out and you're not coming back the way I want you to come, right? So you can totally do that as long as you're okay with not getting back, as long as you're not getting attached to the outcome that you want. Because I think that's coming up. Look at that, control. The only person you have control over is yourself. You don't have control over anybody else. Only person you have control is yourself. You can get as upset as you want to about your friend, about your boss, about your colleague, about whoever. You can make anybody else change. You can make anybody else want to grow. You can make anybody else want to vibrate high if they insist on staying into a low vibrational state because that's what they know. That's their choice. You have a choice in choosing how you spend your energy with those people. And a big one, again, going back to internal versus external, is your external or is your internal environment controlling the state of your being? That is a big question to ask yourself. And that is a good one to reflect all the time. Even when you make decisions, ask yourself, is this me talking or is that somebody else's voice talking? Because again, you want to start defaulting to what you believe, to your intuition, to you doing life the way you want it to be. And that's a big one. Yes, and trying to control things that you can control. That was me. I was a queen of that. Stress and anxiety. So if you're experiencing a lot of stress and anxiety, investigate control. What are you trying to control that you have? You have no control over people. You have no control over circumstances. You have no control over certain changes that are happening, like in the world, right? You have only control of how you respond or how you choose to respond or react to them. Yes.
One thing, Maria, that's been helpful for me in, obviously I've been writing lots of forgiveness letters to my husband. My ex-husband, I'm probably on the 5th or 6th iteration of that forgiveness letter, is because my understanding of the world, the story I'm telling myself is that he's not at a high enough vibration to be able to receive what I say in the way I want him to. And so whatever the truth of that is, one thing that's been really helpful for me is writing myself a letter back from him in the way that I would like for him to respond.
I love that. What a great idea to rewrite the story. I love that, Suzanne. That's a fabulous idea. I like that. Yeah. It is really hard to accept that you can control others, especially when you're doing something that comes from a place of love and you want the best for that person, right? And they're just like, nope. You just have to be like, okay, right? And still love them, right? Regardless of who they are and regardless of the way they show up. But that goes back to remember assigning meaning and being empathetic and open. And instead of being pissed and whatever other emotions you're experienced toward him, to be like, you know what? I do wish things were different, maybe, maybe not, but I love you anyways. And like, wow, what an elevated experience that is. Right? Very good, great example. Shame and guilt, woohoo, big ones. And the best way to describe shame and guilt are, these are there to keep you in the safety box and to keep you away from expressing yourself so that you can fit in society, into the current picture. If you think about it, Do you ever catch yourself? I have a teenager, like shaming her, and now I'm so aware that I'm like, ooh, like, okay, mama, don't do that. Like, you know better.
Mhm.
Sometimes easier than others, right? But
Yeah.
basically, the shame is that belief that we're flawed and we are unworthy of love and belonging. And I will tell you some of the most effective ways that people will attempt to keep you into the safety box is shame and guilt. Um, I don't know if that's relevant to anybody here, but parents, oh my gosh, I paid for your education and now you want to do this. Um, what are people going to say if my daughter is now just this versus that, right? It kind of makes you like, oh, I don't want to disappoint my mom or my professor or my colleague or my teacher or whoever. So I would rather not be my authentic self so that they love me and they,
Mm.
they support me. And then we start sacrificing who we are so that we can keep others happy. And then guilt is shame's best friend. They usually go hand in hand together. And guilt is I did something wrong. So shame is I am unworthy of love. I'm not good enough. And guilt is I did something wrong. And guilt feeds shame. So just be aware that that might show up, especially from others. Very interesting. It might show up from you. You might catch yourself guilting yourself or shaming yourself. One of the things I've had to work through is building a business requires a lot of time. So I'm being a bad mom because I don't spend all the time that I can with my daughter, right? Because I'm focusing too much on my business. So I've had to become very intentional. When I work, I work. When I'm with her, I'm with her. I don't, when I'm with her, I'm not on my phone, I'm not checking emails, I'm not neither here nor there. When I work, I'm intentional to be present in my work when I'm with her. And I'll tell you, during the weeks, I don't see my daughter that much. I, kiss her in the morning. I usually get up and get started before she heads to school. And sometimes we have some quality time in the evening. I work late evenings. The weekends, I am very intentional and very protective of my time. That is like my family time. Saturday mornings are usually okay because she's a teenager. She doesn't get up. She's probably still in bed right now. So by the time we're done with this, she's going to be up and then she would not want to hang out with me. And I'm going to be like, I don't care. This is our time together. I take trips with us doing together where I'm really not doing anything but spending time with her, talking to her. So this is something the self-imposed guilt and shame may show up with you in different parts of your life. Just be aware of how you're addressing them. Don't ignore them, acknowledge them, and find out a solution that works for you. Perfectionism. Anybody in here can relate to that? Yes, if I don't do it perfectly, I'm just not going to do it. And if you guys remember, that's part of our self-sabotaging patterns is that I have to do it perfectly, otherwise I'm just not going to do it. And that is going to take you nowhere because you're going to keep sitting, perfecting it, overthinking it, overanalyzing it. Remember how we talked about the balance of doing so much of the self-care work that you forget to move forward, that you become so focused on your, how you show up that you don't move forward. We can get so creative with perfectionism. It's not even funny. So I call myself a recovering perfectionist. And sometimes I get a tickle when I do stuff and I'm like, oh my gosh, like the old me would have taken like years to do something that now it's taking me like a day. You know what? That's making me think decision making, you guys. That is a huge one. You have to learn to make decisions fast because perfectionism, over analyzing is going to keep you, well, do I want to do it this way or do I want to do it that way? And what if I do it this way? And as a result, what do? You do nothing. So, and that's going to get better the more you go through the process, but you have to learn to make decisions quick. Yes, I'm not saying make them half-assed, but I'm saying don't think that you need to have every little detail worked out before you step into a decision. What people think about you is my best face is none of your business. Again, people see you from the way they look like, from their database, from where they're in their life, and they will gladly share their feedback with you. This is one that was a big one for me, and I still have to be very aware of how it limits me. So I have to be very intentional to just shut down the voices of others and stay present into myself. Keep in mind that if you think you can make everybody else happy, you will not. So you might just as well choose to make yourself happy. Most of us are conditioned to make everybody else happy before we make ourselves happy. So this is a great thing where do you guys see how all of the focus is around you, around your internal state, around who you are, around your intuition? Everything is internal versus external. But if we're conditioned for so many years to be guided by the external, we have to shift that to the internal. And again, this goes a lot against our conditioning, because remember, our subconscious is formed based on our need for love and safety. And when we hear like criticism, it can come, we can interpret it, we can assign the meaning that I'm not loved, I'm not safe, and ask yourself if that's the truth. If you do something, would that person really not love you? And you know what? The answer might be, it's not that they don't love you. It might be that they're jealous of you, that you're stepping into your power. Unfortunately, I had that experience. I had friends who were all there for me when I was in the low and commiserating with them. The minute I started going up, they didn't want to do anything with me because, oh, who does she think she's now? Right? You want to be surrounded by people who are like, oh my gosh, I'm so happy you're not in that stuck state and miserable anymore. You go, girl. How did you do it? I want to do that too. Right? So that is where you're going to start seeing the disconnect. And again, remember that happiness is an internal job. Going along with that, comparison, that is such a trap, because we might all be doing the exact same thing, and now you might be like, oh, I need to do the exact thing Maria is doing. No, you need to do the exact thing that is right, the right thing for you, in helping you step into who you are, because we are two different human beings, two unique human beings who have, maybe our purpose is similar, but it's in some way different, right? So you got to do you and stay true to who you are and allow yourself to step into that. Do you guys need a biology break?
Yes,
10?
actually.
Yes. Okay. Let's do 11:20. Yes.
Sounds good.
Screen. I love how Zoom constantly moves the buttons around. It's like it was in the left, now it's on the right. Okay. So we talked about that. Read all which does not serve you. And I will tell you that as you grow, as you grow to your journey, you're going to become quicker and faster about that, because you might feel some shame, you might feel some guilt, you might experience different emotions, you might feel like you're not loyal, whatever goes through your head. But, and I don't mean this like get rid of people because they don't serve you, like you're using people, but if you have people in your life who are damaging to you, they're not respecting your time, they are telling you things which you don't need to hear, right? They're putting you down, whatever it is that it is, get rid of that. The negative self-talk, right? Let it go. And I will tell you, if you say, starting today, I'm not going to tell myself anything negative, that's going to come fast and furious and try to bite you, because your body's going, absolutely not. We're going to hold on to this because she has lost her mind and going crazy. So acknowledge it, right? Recognize it's there and then deal with it, instead of just try to shove it to the side, right? Okay, I'm aware that I'm thinking this. How can I pause, rewire, right? How can I how can I create a different thought? How can I ask a better question? How can I rewire and go into a state of a free state instead of confined state? So the same thing goes with the doubt, with the worries, with the limiting beliefs. All of that has to do with you stepping, believing, trusting, surrendering. Heart versus ego. We spoke about that. This is a game changer. This was an absolute game changer. I was so ego driven, which ego is very much masculine energy. And I used to be very much into my masculine energy, which is not a surprise. I was in the finance industry, guys. It's not the most loving, cuddly environment out there. It's it's very cutthroat. So I had built those mechanisms to survive, survival mechanisms, right? And I'll tell you that living from a place of heart and loving on everybody and supporting people and being open and being vulnerable despite knowing that the feedback might be, it is what it is, right? It's a very different place um to function, to thrive from. So again, remember, ego is that protection, it's that guard, it's that mistrust of my ego is up because I'm getting ready for a boxing match and I need to survive this boxing match, right? Heart is I'm opening myself up, I am vulnerable, I'm showing up as who I am. um, and again, you have to find the balance, right? You don't want to be too far here, you don't want to be too far here. You want to find that sweet middle spot that works for you, and for each and every one of us, it's going to be a different spot, and that's totally okay. The very interestingly is that when the ego kicks, I'll again speak from personal experience, that had to do with a lot of my insecurity. It's like, are they gonna find out that I'm like, that I don't know everything, and that, like, whatever was going through my head, versus like, I am who I am. I don't know everything. I'm open about it. And you can judge me and choose to not be my friend, or you can choose to love me for it, right? But just be aware of that, like that, like when you feel again your body shrinking, when your shoulders shrugging, it's almost like the visual that I have in my head is like the rooster. You know how the rooster walks like with their chest up? Like that kind of visual comes to mind. And the heart is serving, is how can I help you, how can I support you, how can I be there for you? So that's just something that you might need to pay attention to, because sometimes your ego will jump into a defense and you think that's your intuition. Vibes, I told you I'm big on vibes, and what I have to say is never ever do anything in a state of low vibration. And I literally start my day with dancing and a good song. If I'm going into a meeting and I feel like, I don't feel like as elevated or as, like pumped up and joyful, I would literally take a second to get myself into that state, whether it's through breathing or putting a good music or dancing, or if I have time writing or stepping outside and getting some sunshine, whatever it is to raise my vibes. Like I am like seriously, like I seriously mean that. It's not like a cute thing. So whether it's a network meeting, a business meeting, a sales meeting, an admin meeting, whatever it is, and it might be a meeting that you're going to discuss something that's uncomfortable, right? How are you going to go into that meeting? Are you going to go with like fear and overwhelmed mind, and your mind spinning of what am I going to say? Or are you going to go in with clarity and calm and owning the space, right? And owning what you have to say, taking that personal responsibility, big difference. And people can feel energy. Sometimes people don't know what it is that they're feeling, but they're like, we as humans, we are, everything around us is energy. We are energy, right? So if you think about being around somebody and you leave the meeting and you're like, oh, that just didn't feel good, right? You might not be able to put the finger on their energy, but there are some people who are like energy vampires, right? They suck the energy right out of us. And also people are unconsciously attracted to high vibration. So when you feel good, when you're vibing, when you're out there, people just want to be around you. They're like, I just want to hang out with you. And that is so cool, because then you start attracting all sorts of cool people. What is telling you what your state of vibration is? Your body. So check in with your body before you go into your next big meeting, before you make into, that's another important one, decision making. Don't you ever go into decision making from a state of away, from a state of cluttered mind, from a state of rushing. Especially those big decisions, you give yourself space, you give yourself quietness to make those decisions. And again, pains, aches, cluttered mind, all of these are telling you misalignment with yourself, and they will ruin your vibes. Ask and receive, personally a big one for me. I am a great giver. Asking for help was very scary for me, because that required me to be vulnerable and to say, I don't know, I need help, I need support. Again, do it with an open heart. And how would you know if you're with an open heart? An easy one. I pay you a compliment. I love your hair today, or I love your sweater, or whatever. And you go, oh, thank you, I love your sweater too. Like you feel like you need to return the compliment back, versus like, wow, like, thank you. Like, really, thank you. Like, feel the energy of Thank you. Feel it with your entire being, with your entire body. Get used into feeling those vibrations in your body, guys, because a big part of reprogramming this is not only the body. We have to reprogram the mind. Sometimes we can tell ourselves, well, I'm going to choose to be positive, and your body is going, yeah, not so much, right? And that's misalignment. You cannot trick yourself into high vibrational state. Your body, your mind, and your spirit all have to be high vibrational. Otherwise, you're misaligned. And when you're misaligned, you can attract high vibrations. So we have to start becoming more and more aware of how our body feels. Like, what is our state of being? Which is why keep asking, keep checking with yourself. How am I doing? How am I doing? When you're going into a decision, when you're going into a meeting, when you're meeting a friend, how am I doing? This one is a huge one. And there is a book that honestly was a game changer for me. And that is, it's actually called The Four Agreements. And these are the four agreements. Do not make assumptions. Like, this is another one. Print, memorize, put it in your phone, whatever works for you. Do not take things personally. Always do your best and be impeccable with your word. The part that I like to add there is especially to yourself, because we're usually pretty good about being responsible for others. Bless you.
Thank you.
But we are not always so good with keeping our word to ourselves. Remember that your assumptions are based on your belief system. So now, I don't know why I always default to this example, but you asked me, Sudi asked me, Maria, do you want to go to dinner? And I say, so sorry, I can't. And now she's like, "Ugh, she doesn't want to be my friend. She's always too busy for me." Does that have any truth? Did she ask me if she really wants to know why I can't go to dinner? She's making a bunch of assumptions based on what she has going on in her life. Is that the truth? She actually doesn't know, because she just made that assumption based on nothing, she saw two words on the text message, perhaps, right? So this one was a huge for me, especially I'll tell you when I started doing sales, because in the beginning, when I started doing sales and I'll get a no, that would literally pull me back for 2 weeks with like, I can't do this again. They didn't like me, right? And that has nothing to do with it, right? So again, when somebody says something to you and you feel triggered, ask yourself, remember, you have to ask a question. Ask yourself, am I taking this personally? Am I making assumptions? Think perhaps about something that's going in your life right now. Is there a place where you're making assumptions or taking things personally? Always do your best. I'd probably say that's probably not a hard one for everybody here. Be impeccable with your word, especially to yourself. That's going to show up, especially when it comes time to take action. So tomorrow I'm going to do X. Tomorrow comes and you're like, I am dreading doing X. Therefore, I'm going to get busy and clean the house and not do X. Right? So those four big ones. Focus. That is, speaking of time management, focus, focus, focus. Especially when we step into entrepreneurship, doing new things, we get excited. It can be like squirrel, right? I want to do this, and I want to do this, and I want to do this, and I want to do this. And what are you doing? You're doing none of them, because you cannot focus and get any one of them done. Or what are others doing? It doesn't matter. Maria just launched 2 courses and I still haven't launched mine. Who cares? We're not in a competition. You're doing you. Perhaps your program is much more intense than what I'm launching. It doesn't matter. You do you, you stay true to your internal game. So I ask you today, what is your number one focus? Do you know? Or when I ask you that, you're like, oh man, I have like 10 things that are my number one focus. Again, don't go into judgment. Don't go into beating yourself. Simply become aware of, look at that. I have way too many things competing for the number one spot. It is very easy to get distracted, especially when you step into the uncomfortable. So you have to be intentional. You, again, going back to self-care intentionality, you have to be intentional about where you show up. And another thing is your time and money will show you your true priorities. So I frequently will tell clients, okay, do a run of your credit card statement and see if they say, well, my biggest thing is self-development. And then they do the run and it's like, oh, wow, it's like it's going out with friends and drinking. That's kind of the opposite of self-development. Or if you say, my priority is my family, and then you look at your calendar and you're like, oh, wow, I don't spend any time with my family. So now you're in misalignment between what you're saying and what you're doing. Your thoughts, your emotions, and your actions are misaligned, right? So we want to have that focus where we are, everything is in alignment. Anchors. Anchors are things or people who can take you, who can celebrate you, cheer you, support you. So who is a great anchor? The person who you're stepping into. How would she do this differently than that? What would she think about this? How would she address this differently than the way I'm addressing it now? Your tribe, again, be careful who you allow into your tribe. You have to be very intentional of who is allowed in there. Someone you admire, whether it's another physician, another researcher, another entrepreneur, right? Somebody who admires you. How would he or she do that? How do I think they're going to do that? And then some kind of object. You guys, everybody got their little coin, the little hug pocket. So what I would encourage you to do is next time you read what you want or who you want to step into becoming, put that coin right there next to you and make that an anchor for yourself of the journey that you are on. You can put it in your purse, you can put it on your desk, you can put it wherever you're going to be taking most of the action. That's going to help you step into who you are. And let that be an anchor. When you start doubting yourself, look at it, connect to that high vibrational energy and be like, yep, I got that. Okay, thank you. I got that, right? Again, it's all about awareness and rewiring. Surrender and flow. Surrender, sometimes people think surrender is, again, sit there and meditate all day long. No, surrender is trusting the journey. It's trusting the path that you're on. Again, most of us are taught to push instead of flow and surrender with trust. And that's where the scarcity comes. I don't have the time. I'm rushing from place to place. I'm going to get this done regardless of how I feel. And to me, I have redefined success to like, yes, success is having all that you want and you feel great. You're vibrating high. You are with people who you love. You're doing what you love. That statement that I underlined there, to me, that like summarizes the entire presentation into one sentence. And that is a state of surrender, letting go, and flowing while being internally guided, where your thoughts, feelings, and actions are in alignment, is where the magic begins. And that is where we're going, guys. That is your guiding statement for the 6 weeks and then going ahead. Alignment. We already talked about that. You want to have physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual all in alignment. If any one of them is out, you're out of alignment. The physical, your body will show you. Something will hurt, something will be achy when you're physically in alignment. Mental misalignment, cluttered mind, too many thoughts. You can't distinguish the other voices versus your voices. Emotion, how are you feeling? Again, your body. And spiritual, those high vibrations. Do you trust? Do you feel connected to a higher energy? Action. I think we have said plenty about action, but just remember that action is the only thing which will change your life. And what I would add to that is, I would say, inspired action. Action towards, not frantic running around, escaping the life that you're living in now. Action. Different quality of action, not low vibrational, high vibrational, moving into growth, expansion, flow, feeling great, right? Very, very important. Now we have a break time, but look at that. We have 20 minutes. And I'm going to kind of jump around because does everybody in here have a self-care practice, a daily self-care practice? Suzanne, yes. Sudi?
No,
Sudi?
not yet.
Okay. So that is going to be one of the big pieces. If you don't have a practice, starting with like 5-10 minutes of being intentionally present. These are always, and Sudi, we can talk about that. But you have to find what works for you. I personally love journaling. Does journaling work for everybody? No. I like outdoor time. Intentional movement is huge for me. the basics, lifestyle basics, the sleep, like I already mentioned it, the quality of the food, the people you surround yourself with, environmental toxin crap that you put into your body, right? Movement, and I call it intentional movement instead of just movement, but being present into how you move. Remember how I told you how I start my classes, that it's uncomfortable for people into the beginning, being present into your body, how your body moves, how your muscles move. You have to create a self-care routine daily, because that's going to be an anchor for making sure that you can quiet this and you feel good. Intention. How intentional are you with your time, with your day? Are you just going through the motion? Or are you like, I am doing this now because this is the importance of it in my life right now? To the example that Suzanne brought up, is she going to go into creating those videos with a lot of intention and creativity, or is she just going to rush through it, right? So the intention has to be part of our days. The intentional time is, you must make time for it. If you just hope that you're going to have time when you're in your downtime during the day, I'm going to tell you that's not going to happen. So you're going to see on my calendar printout that I actually have to pencil in into my calendar when my time for me is going to be, and it can move depending on what's going on, but I'm intentional for it to be there. Your calendar is very symbolic of your intentions. Are you rush, which is scarcity, or are you thriving? One thing I would highly encourage you to do, if you don't already do that, is start every morning with gratitude for what you have, and then end your day with gratitude, but very intentional gratitude. You're welcome to journal about it. I just do it in my head. I literally go through my day. I don't just say, well, I'm grateful for all of the great sessions that my clients get. I go through, I'm so grateful for the session that Suzanne had where she got to da da da. I'm so grateful for the session that Suri had, that she had that awareness. I'm so grateful for what happened in Adriana's. Do you guys see? Like, I'm intentional about everything that has happened. I'm so intentional. I'm so grateful for the meeting that I had with this person and the lesson that came. I'm so grateful for how this didn't work out and opened my eyes to something new I was not aware of. Very intentional, again, feeling it through your body, because again, we are rewiring your body as well, not just your brain. And another great exercise for you would be to read your journal entries, the two that you did on a regular basis. Maybe put it by your bed, maybe before you go to bed at night. You read it last thing, first thing in the morning. First thing in the morning and last time before you go to before you go to bed are both great times to do intentional work, even if it's like 3 minutes, because your brain is still not flooded with like all of the to-dos that you have to do, right? It's a great time to tap into the subconscious, which is where we're working. So let's talk calendar, because your first homework for the 11th will be to go through your calendar and figure out what are the type of things that are not high priority that are on your calendar and are perhaps taking a lot of times on your calendar. What are some things that, based on your priorities, should be on your calendar and have absolutely no time for them? Very frequently, people are working on their businesses, and I'm like, so when are you going to do that? Well, I have to do this, and I have to run to the bank and go do groceries, and in between that, no, there is no intention. You're rushing in between things. You're not centered. You're not focused. The energy that you put in it is the energy that's going to come out. So this is an old version of my calendar, but I basically took my 5 days a week, and I'll tell you, I used to teach 6 days a week. I have shortened that. I used to teach every evening late. I have shortened that. What are the key things that are going to be on my calendar? So teaching, business development. I used to never put time for admin work. And then the week would finish. I'll have like 12, 14-hour days. And now there's a pile of stuff that I have to do. Now I start beating on myself because I'm like, well, I didn't do that. When was I supposed to do that? I was going the whole time. So I actually have to put a chunk on my calendar that says, this is time to do admin stuff. This is time when I'm going to do networking. So I want you to go through your things which are critical, which are non-negotiable. So Suzanne mentioned she has to see her patients. That's non-negotiable because that is her business, right? So that has to be on her calendar. When is going to be the time when I do podcasting? When am I going to record podcasts? When am I going to do reach outs and business development? You have to think and be intentional about these things. Otherwise, every week when you start, you have to have your clears. This is what I'm working on this week, and this is what I'm going to accomplish. Versus you wake up, you're like, what should I do today? And then life takes over. And you're just like here and here and here and here, and you're really nowhere. And then the week finishes and you're like, okay, so I didn't do anything that I planned to do. So we'll start again next week. And then next week comes, and what happens? The same thing. And then a year later, now that no longer feels good. Because you're like, I keep saying that to myself and I do nothing. What is that doing to your subconscious? Now you're convincing your subconscious that, yeah, you're not good enough. You're not getting things done. You've told me that before. You don't get stuff done. And now that reinforces that negative self-talk that we're so good at. So your calendar is so critical. And your homework, like I said, is go through it. I'll show you some of my, like this is my 2025 calendar. We're already starting to plug in the strategy sessions we're doing, what's going to go into that calendar, what we have to, So here I have 2 speaking engagements. I have to prepare for them, right? I don't just put them on there. Granted, sometimes you can steal information, but I have to be intentional to put the work to prepare for them. It's not just, I'm just going to go do a speaking engagement. I might have to book my trip. I might have to book my hotel, right? I have to arrange for like childcare and stuff like that. It's not just like I'm going to put it on my calendar. I have to find the time to like put all of the details around that trip on the calendar. And again, this is what works for me. It's not the way you have to do it. And then this is an example of my podcast. So I could just be randomly recording episodes. And I will tell you, I started my podcast like that. And I'm like, okay, we need some more intention. So now for next year, I'm doing topics. January is pain-free living. And these are my subtopics, which I'm going to cover in January. So for everything that you're doing, start thinking, okay, podcast, that's on the calendar. I have time for it to do the recordings. How does this podcast fall into the context of my business and everything that I'm doing? Or is it just like I'm doing a podcast and I'm doing teaching and I'm doing speaking, but they're like really, there's no coherence between them. And I'm just doing them because I'm busy and it feels good to say that I have a podcast. Different energy, right? Like I already said, your self-care, that becomes an actual non-negotiable. Every day, you have to do self-care, okay? If you have issues with, you do self-care, you don't do self-care, and if you need support and accountability, I created the WhatsApp group. If you need to put a check mark, if you feel more comfortable texting me when you have done it, we can do that, right? I'm here to support you however I can. But again, I cannot do the self-care for you. You have to do your self-care. If you, one client said, what if I lie to you? I said, okay, who is that not serving? Are you lying to me or are you lying to yourself? So we have two personal responsibility, right? You're not doing your self-care for me. You're doing your self-care for yourself. Okay, so next time we are going to go, we have to do a couple of things related to the body, and emotional release exercise and the body scan. So we'll find time into the upcoming sessions to do that. I'm going to quickly go through that because that will be your homework for the following week. And that is creating the vision for your business, whether it's a new business or it's your business expanding. I want you to think about creating your business from a place of calm and abundance. Very, very important. The energy of creation that you're going to put into it will be very different. So we will talk about sales because that's a big one. Okay. So that's the homework, and I have a summary where the homework is outlined, but this is the homework for the 18th. So for the 11th, your homework is to go through your calendar, create clarity around that. For the 18th, you're going to reread your prompts of what you want your life to look like and who do you want to become. And then you're going to write about your business. Now, I want the big picture of your business. I don't need the strategic plan of what your business will look like, because that is a place where we can get stuck. I want you to, where you want your business to be six weeks from now, 6 months from now, a year from now. Dream big. Don't put limitations. Don't think about, well, I can't do that. I shouldn't do that. Dream on that piece of paper. Dream. Some of the things you may want to consider, and these are just suggestions. What are your products and offerings? Start from a place of, what do I enjoy? What am I passionate about? Because so frequently we start with, well, I need to sell this because this is what sells, and therefore that is what I'm going to sell to people I don't really like, but I know these are the people who are going to buy. And now we start creating from a place of sympathetic confinement versus a place of freedom. So again, think of, if I had to introduce a new product into my practice, my online courses that I'm doing, like, what is going to be the vibe of them? How am I going to be excited to share them with the world? What's going to make them unique? What about them do I enjoy? Right? Because the next thing is, when you start talking about them to the world, you better be excited and high vibrational when you're offering them to the world, right? So these are just suggestions of questions to think about. And if there are multiple products and services that you want to offer, again, you have to start somewhere. You can launch 10 new products in a short period of time. You can launch.
May I ask a clarifying question?
Mm-hmm.
So we are meeting again on Wednesday, correct?
Yeah.
And this is the homework for starting next Wednesday. Got it. But you'll share this with us again?
I will share. Yeah, I'll share this after we're done our email it. So this is the homework for the 18th. Then other things to work with. Who do you want to work with? Once again, I will caution you. Don't get trapped. Well, who can afford my service? Well, I think she's going to buy it, and therefore I'm going to create a whole course because there's one person who I think is going to buy it. Who are the people that you enjoy working with? Who do you enjoy working with? I'm becoming very clear of who I want to work with. The more in the beginning, I took everybody. Why? Because I was desperate to make money. Scarcity, low vibrations. But that's the truth. That's where I started. I actually didn't know any better. I just needed to survive, and I was in a state of survival. Now I actually interview people. I interview people who join these classes. I interview people who go on to the retreats, because I know I can teach you everything that I know. And if you go like, I know, if you're not open and if you're not going to take action, I can teach you everything that I want. And guess what? You're going to see zero difference, right? So you have to do the same thing. Who do I enjoy working with? Like, go through your life now. Like, Adriana, I know you're stepping into something different, but think about the corporate people that you enjoyed working with, right? Who are those people? What kind of personality do they have? What do they enjoy doing? What kind of vibes do they have? And create from that place. And then think how and where you're going to sell your products. So Suzanne is creating an online program. Suri, I think yours is online as well. Adriana, sounds like you do online piece too, right? Do you want to have hybrid? Start getting clarity around some of this stuff. Here is what I'll tell you. Over time, this will change. You will try something and you go, look, I think I shared with Suzanne. The people, you guys showing up here were not the people I was going after when I started this. And then one by one, I was like, look at that. Did I go, well, no, I don't want you here because that's not who you are envisioned? I was like, thank you. Well, okay. Yeah, embrace it and just move forward. And this will become a living plan, right? That's why I don't want you to get stuck very much into the details, but keep it high level, more like a vision of where you're going with it. And then think about your brand. Perhaps you already have a brand. Perhaps your brand needs a tweak because, I started as my first title was a Pilates teacher. Then I stepped into mind body coaching, right? And like all of that is expanding. And that's okay. Your brand will evolve. The colors that you choose, the colors that are part of my brand now are different than the colors I had before. All this will evolve, but start somewhere, right? Think of how your brand is a reflection of you. You're birthing this baby. So how does your brand represent you? Adriana, you said you're playful. So is your brand playful, right? Or is your brand like, no, I'm going to sell to corporate people, so it's going to be stiff because you're going after a client who you think will need your services, but you're in misalignment with yourself, right? Pricing, that's a big one. Pricing, go with what feels right. Because I will tell you, I don't do much research of what my competitors do. For one, what I do is very unique. But for two, is I do so much extensive training and coaching for myself so that I can grow and be the best at what I do, that my pricing is higher, if you look from a Pilates perspective, than what other coaches do. Am I allowing that to stop me? No, I'm going to do me and the right people will show up. Is it going to be a different type of crowd? Yep. Now, if you're selling bread and you're going to sell a loaf of bread for $1 million, that perhaps is a stretch, right? But, I don't quote me on this, but Publix bread is what, $3? Whole Foods bread is $6. I choose to buy my breads at Whole Foods because they use better flour. They don't use enriched flour. Am I willing to pay that? Yes. Is somebody else looking, is purely price conscious? Yes, they're going to shop at Publix, right? So the people who are your clients will be looking for the type of stuff you are offering. They will be willing to pay the price you are asking for. And the price is really not about the price. And we're going to get into that when we talk about sales. It's really about the value that you're providing. And when you have a conversation with somebody and it becomes about the value and what they're going to get out of it, the price is kind of like a matter of fact of what the price is, right? But you have to be confident into asking that price. Because if I tell you about my great program and then you're like, so how much is it? And I'm like, well, you know, can you feel the energy shift?
Mm-hmm.
Now, you might not be
I have
aware
a
that
gal,
that's
I interviewed a woman, a different coach before you, and I said, do you do any one-on-one counseling or is it all group? And she said, well, at that level, it's all group. And I said, well, what is the cost of, or what would it entail to do the higher, like, she didn't even offer me that option. And I said, what would it entail to do? And the way she presented it to me was so, I was so offended that she didn't even consider offering that option to me. It was very interesting. And I was like, you're not my person.
But see, what you felt, you weren't even like maybe as clear on like what was that,
Yeah.
right? It's just you felt, and that was. I will tell you. I know we're running out of time. I was on a call, somebody to interview me for a speaking thing, to interview me if I'm a fit for her speaking thing, right? We get on the phone, and I kid you not, the meeting was 30 minutes. For 30 minutes, she launches into selling me her program, and I'm like, huh. And then we're running out of time and she goes, yeah, let me ask you now about you. Whoa, like that whole conversation should have been about me and my needs, and seeing if I'm a fit for what you're doing. But instead you wasted the time and you could tell she's so uncomfortable into offering her program. So I'm done with her, right? But
That's
you
right.
can feel that. So we'll talk more about the sales into another call, but pricing is a big part of your business. And then you have to be clear of what your strengths are, and you have to be clear on where you delegate, right? Because I have done several courses which are like, let me teach you about how to do Facebook ads and how to do this and that. I have no interest in running Facebook ads. That's not what I do. I do this and I love doing this, and this is my strength, and that is what I need to be focusing my energy. I don't need to be distracting myself, right? And being unintentional with learning stuff that is not my thing. There are experts who are fascinated by that. They want to do it. So let them do that. Remember, you are the one in charge of your life. Changing your life is an internal game. Okay, this is the homework. Next meeting on the 11th, review your calendar. Identify your priorities. You have to align your time, energies, and resources with your priorities. Look for those misalignments. If you're getting ready to rock and roll your business and you have no time to do business planning and to invest time into building those programs, that's a misalignment. What will you add and drop? Are there networking groups that you go to on a weekly basis that are really not doing anything for you and you're just going because you've been doing it for a while? Maybe it's time to drop them, right? And just think, you're going to have priorities and this will be evolving, right? Your calendar will be evolving, your priorities will be evolving. But where do we start? We have to start somewhere. The 18th, it's giving you more time. That's where you're going to work on your business, right? How do you want your business to look like differently? And then on the 8th, we're going to really like move towards taking action. Yes. The next two meetings, we're going to cover the sales piece and then do some of the exercises on releasing emotions through our body. We have the WhatsApp group. If you have any questions, please do not wait till Wednesday. Ask them, put them in there. You can do audio messages. You can do text messages. If you have a question, likely somebody else has a question. If you feel stuck and you need support, put it out there. If you want to celebrate something, let's celebrate together. This is like the journey of a lifetime. It's going to be fun. It's going to be great. And I'm so excited to be doing this with you guys. Yes. Woo! That was a lot. Yes. Yes. How are we feeling?
Oh,
I want
awesome.
to say that today was a lot. We covered a lot in a very short period of time. So please honor yourself, your body, mind, and spirit, and nurture yourself and do things that will help you absorb all of that, right? Give yourself the time and the space to like really soak it in. I will share a copy of the presentation and I will post the recording. One thing is, I would highly encourage you, if you want to watch the recording now, that's great. At the end of the 6 weeks, I will ask you to watch the recording again, because by then you would have some experience in practicing and you will be practicing all the time. So you will absorb the exact same information at a completely different level. Yes? Feedback, questions.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's wonderful. Thanks, Maria.
You're
So
welcome.
awesome.
I yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just gonna say, okay, I'm gonna run and do a little family time stuff now. But yeah, this was so great. It was so great to meet everyone too, and looking forward to being on this journey with you all. So I'll see you again on Wednesday. Right?
Wednesday. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'll
see
Okay.
see you then.
everyone Wednesday.
Thank
Have an
you.
amazing weekend.
Thank
Bye,
you.
guys.
Bye.
Thank you. If I can figure out how to turn this off now. Hello, Sophia.
Thanks. Bye, sweet.
Okay.